I'm Lirels, though I wasn't always. 3 days ago I died in my old world, drowning while trying to save someone, and woke up in this body. A broken, hungry body living in the 9th district of Lawrence City, the worst slum in the Griffin Kingdom. The air here stinks of waste, the people look half dead, and my only food is black bread so hard even dogs wouldn't touch it. This world is stuck somewhere around medieval times, but it has magic, gods, dragons, demons, and creatures from underground that raid the surface and slaughter whole towns. Ordinary people like me are nothing here, powerless, poor, invisible. The person whose body I took over was the last of the Els family. His father, Baron Els, died 10 years ago from an old wound, and the family fell apart after that. By kingdom law, if nobody claims a noble title within 7 years, it's taken away. The original Lear was too young, only 15 when the deadline passed, so the family lost everything. He ended up in the slums. To get the title back, there's only one path: become a frontier lord. That means going into the wilderness beyond the kingdom's borders and building a settlement there. It sounds simple, but over 2,000 years, the kingdom has only pushed 1,000 miles into that land, and the dead frontier lords could fill a mountain. Orcs, vampires, undead, dark elves, demons, the wilderness has all of them. The original Lear applied anyway. He figured starving to death in the slums was no better than taking a chance out there. But his body was so weak he died from a simple fall before he even got started. That's when I arrived. My neighbor Jim, a kind old man, a former knight who works at the docks now, tried to talk me out of it. He told me everything that waits in the wilderness. He hoped the Duke would reject my application. But today a soldier came to my door with a sealed document. Duke Lorne approved it. I'm to report tomorrow morning to receive my supplies and choose my territory. The paper also confirms my inheritance. I am now Baron Lirels again. There's no backing out. By law, any frontier lord who refuses to go or makes excuses is hanged as a deserter. In a world full of people with supernatural power, running isn't really an option either. I stood there staring at the document, feeling the weight of it all. Was just staying alive really this hard? And then, a faint blue light appeared in my mind. It gathered into a glowing panel with words on it. Detection complete. You have become a lord. The intelligence system is now active. I jumped to my feet, my heart pounding. Whatever this system was, it might just be the one thing that could keep me alive out there. After Jim left, I turned my attention to the intelligence system in my mind. It refreshes every 5 days and shows me 5 pieces of information, each ranked by how valuable it is, from 1 star up to 6. Since this was my first time, I got a bonus. 1 piece guaranteed to be 5 stars or higher. I commanded the system to refresh, and 5 entries started appearing on the glowing blue panel. The first 2 were only 1 star. One was about a supply officer named Dern planning to take a bribe and give special frontier supplies to some noble family called Roll. Not useful to me. My family's rank is too low to qualify for those supplies anyway. The second warned that over 100 ogres would attack a town called Windmill Town north of the city. Dangerous stuff, but nothing I could do about it. The third and fourth were 2 stars, much better. The third told me that at the 9th District Black Market, Stall 13 was selling tree saplings labeled as ordinary redleaf trees. But they were actually lava fruit trees, a magical plant. Lava fruits restore magic power and sell for 10 gold coins each. A regular person earns maybe 5 or 6 gold in a whole year. Someone was selling these precious saplings at the price of common wood. If I could buy them, the profit would be enormous. The fourth was about Felina Lauren, the eldest daughter of the family that rules this entire city. She's a level 16 Grand Mage, only 24 years old, powerful enough to destroy a city. She's been searching for a magical plant called blue crystal grass, and the system told me exactly where to find it. 200 kilometers northwest of the city, in a valley full of lilies. The plant itself might not be worth much on its own, but if someone that powerful wants it, its value skyrockets. This could be my way to fund everything I need. Then the 5th piece of information appeared, and it glowed gold. 6 stars, the highest possible rating. My heart nearly stopped when I read it. In the 9th District Black Market, tomb raiders had stolen a cloudy crystal from an ancient tomb. On the morning of July 8th, at sunrise, they'd sell it at stall 23 near the market entrance. That crystal contained a fragment of the swamp god's shattered divine power. All I had to do was let a drop of my blood fall on it, and I could take control of that fragment. A god's power. The power of a being that rules this world. And it was about to go on sale at a market stall right here in my district. My hands were shaking. This system, it was truly terrifying. It took me a while to calm down after seeing that 6-star information. A fragment of a god's power, just sitting there, waiting to be sold at a market stall. I had to get it. But the problem was obvious. I had no money. I couldn't fight anyone either. I hadn't even formed a magic seed yet. I was just an ordinary person in a world full of powerful beings. Robbing the Tomb Raiders wasn't an option, so I needed a plan. I had to use the smaller pieces of intelligence to earn money first, then go after the divine fragment. The third piece of information was the easiest to act on. The lava fruit tree saplings being sold as cheap red leaf trees at stall 13 in the 9th District Market. I decided to start there. I went to the corner of my room, moved a loose brick, and pulled out 3 silver coins. That was everything the original owner of this body had left. 100 copper coins make 1 silver, and 1 copper buys a loaf of that awful black bread. These 3 coins were enough to survive on for maybe 4 months. Now I was about to gamble them on the system's information. I walked 20 minutes through the winding alleys to the market. The place was full of poor people in patched-up clothes, bargaining hard over every copper coin. I passed through the small vendors and reached the main section, counting stalls until I found number 13. It was a fruit shop run by a thin man with a limp. I noticed a triangle tattoo on his arm, the mark of the Pure Blood Brotherhood, a local gang. The shop was probably a front. I knew I had to be careful and not show what I was really after. I spotted the lava fruit tree saplings right away. They were covered in foul-smelling mud with just a few red leaves poking out. You couldn't tell them apart from ordinary red leaf saplings just by looking. I asked to buy several kinds of common saplings, green fruit, long leaf, and red leaf, mixing my real target in with the rest. There were only 12 lava fruit saplings, so I took all of them along with other cheap ones. I spent 2 silver coins on 40 saplings total, and after plenty of haggling, the man threw in 5 extra just to get rid of me. He spat on the ground as I left, calling me a clueless slum kid. Meanwhile, he had no idea he'd just sold me plants worth a fortune. I carried the bundle of muddy saplings through back alleys, slipping out of the 9th District without trouble. Nobody gave me a second look. The saplings were dirty and seemed worthless. Outside the slums, the city was a different world. Tall, pointed buildings with stained glass windows, walls covered in beautiful plaster carvings praising gods and heroes. Noble ladies peeked from windows. It was stunning, and the contrast with the filth I'd just come from felt almost cruel. I didn't stop to admire it. I had somewhere to be. I hired a carriage and headed for the city center. By sunset, I stood in front of the Rose Estate, the home of the Lauren family. A fountain misted the air at the gate, making a rainbow. The walls were over 10 meters high, lined with angel statues and climbing roses. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. Guards watched me with sharp eyes as I walked forward. They stopped me immediately. "This is the Rose Estate." I raised the small tree in my hand. I found the magical plant that Princess Felina offered a reward for, the blue crystal grass. The guard stopped me at the gate. A tall knight in black armor and a crimson cloak stepped forward, looking me over with suspicion. I was holding muddy saplings and wearing patched clothes. I clearly didn't belong here. I told him I didn't have the blue crystal grass with me, but I knew where it was. He didn't look convinced. I kept my voice steady and explained that no one would risk their life just to lie to the princess. I told him he only needed to pass the message along. If I was wrong, the blame would fall on me, not him. He was starting to come around when the sound of horses interrupted us. 7 white unicorns pulled a carriage wrapped in blooming roses around the corner. As it passed, the plants along the street seemed to wake up, standing taller, turning greener. Roses on the walls swayed without any wind. The air filled with a sweet fragrance. It was like watching a goddess arrive. The coachwoman was a golden-haired girl in a dark blue gown, beautiful enough to be a noblewoman herself. But she was just the attendant. Then the passenger stepped out. Felina Lauren. She had skin like jade, flawless features, and deep blue eyes that could hold anyone's gaze. Her brown hair floated as if weightless. She wore a black robe with faint rose patterns, elegant and noble in every way. Every guard placed a hand on their chest and bowed. The tall knight was trembling with respect. In this world, there are two paths to power, knights and mages. Knights strengthen their bodies. Mages control magic. Mages rank from apprentice up through junior, intermediate, senior, advanced, grand, crown, and finally transcendent. Each rank has 3 levels. Most mages never get past intermediate. Felina was already a level 16 grand mage at 24, the youngest magic prodigy in the history of the Griffin Empire. A grand mage can cast war spells powerful enough to destroy half a city. In the whole empire, only a handful of people have ever gone higher than that. I greeted her with a proper noble's bow, hand on shoulder, polite nod. She noticed and seemed curious. She told me she'd heard our conversation through the air itself, some kind of magic. I reminded myself again how extraordinary this world was. I told her I knew where the blue crystal grass grew and that I'd come for the reward. She was surprisingly direct. She explained the grass was a key ingredient for a potion she needed and asked me what I wanted in return. I couldn't help pointing out that she wasn't much of a negotiator. She smiled faintly, studied my patched clothes and calm eyes, and suggested I tell her the location first, promising a reward that would satisfy me. I gave it to her without hesitating. 200 kilometers northwest of Lawrence City, in a valley full of lilies. Information is only worth something when you trade it to the right person at the right time. Holding back would have gained me nothing. She seemed surprised by how quickly I answered. Then she asked if I wasn't afraid she'd break her promise. After all, she was the princess, and no one would believe a poor man's complaint against her. I looked at her, thought about the 6-star golden intelligence glowing in my mind, and answered calmly. I'm not afraid. The cost of breaking your word might be more than you can afford. Felina's eyes lit up with curiosity. I told her that even the children of the 9th district praised her name. Surely she wouldn't cheat me over a single plant. It was flattery, and we both knew it, but she seemed more interested in the confidence behind my words than the words themselves. She turned to the silver-helmeted knight, Rikel, and ordered him to go retrieve the blue crystal grass immediately. He knelt on one knee, eyes burning with devotion, and accepted the command like it was the greatest honor of his life. I almost wanted to laugh. In this world, a single word from someone like her could make a grown man tremble with pride. Then she chanted a spell in a strange language and raised her head toward the sky. An eagle's cry echoed above us. A massive shadow dropped from the clouds, a griffin. Lion's body, falcon's head, eagle wings stretching over 10 meters wide. Its amber eyes were sharp as arrows. Standing on the ground, its shoulders were over 3 meters high. The pressure coming off it made it hard to breathe. But I wasn't afraid. I was excited. This was the real magic of this world. Creatures that could never exist on Earth. I looked at the griffin and thought that riding one through the sky would be the most thrilling thing imaginable. Felina noticed my reaction. She seemed surprised that an ordinary person with no magic core wasn't scared at all, that I was looking at her war beast like a kid staring at a toy. Rikel mounted the griffin and took off. The wings kicked up a whirlwind as it rose into the sky and vanished into the clouds. Felina asked my name. I introduced myself properly, Lirels, with a noble's greeting. Then she surprised me. She asked to buy the lava fruit saplings I was carrying. She explained that the trees take 20 years of careful nurturing before they bear fruit. 20 years. By then, they'd be useless to me. Only old noble families with centuries of wealth could afford to wait that long. I handed over all 12 saplings without hesitation. She took the muddy little plants in her pale hands, and the moment she touched them, they straightened up and came alive, as if blessed by some goddess of growth. She told me to come back tomorrow after I chose my frontier territory, and she'd give me my full reward then. She promised it would satisfy me. I agreed. Then I added, as casually as I could, that I was a bit short on money and asked if she could lend me 100 gold coins. The guards were stunned. A ragged man from the slums, asking the princess for money? They looked like I'd insulted their goddess. Felina herself didn't know whether to laugh or sigh, but she waved to her maid, a blonde girl named Molly, and told her to hand over the coins. I thanked her generously, perhaps a bit too generously, calling her magnanimous and admirable. She actually laughed at that. Molly brought me a small cloth bag. I opened it, counted the coins, confirmed it was correct, and put it away. Felina watched me do all of this without a hint of embarrassment and smiled to herself. I said my goodbyes and left quickly. I'd already done the math before coming. The 12 lava fruit saplings were worth maybe 30 gold coins on the open market. The blue crystal grass information was worth about 50. So 100 gold coins was already more than I'd expected. The supplies Felina promised for later were just a bonus. I knew when to stop. A smart gambler doesn't chase every last coin. He knows when to leave the table. And right now, in just half a day, I'd turned 2 pieces of 2-star intelligence into a full purse. The 1-star pieces of information were useless to me. I had no way to act on them. But the 5th piece, the 6-star golden intelligence, the swamp god's divine fragment, that was different. July 8th at sunrise. It was coming soon, and I had to be ready. On the morning of July 8th, I put on a black cloak that covered my face and walked into the 9th District's black market. The black market was famous across the entire northern province. It opened once every 3 days, hidden among old ruins deep in the poorest slums. The irony wasn't lost on me. Enormous wealth changing hands in the most miserable place in the city. The crowd was thick, and more than half the people had their faces covered like mine. The stalls sold everything imaginable: strange minerals, beast fangs, swords, glowing potions, chained half-elf servants, and even 20 full sets of royal army armor with the Griffin Empire's seal still on them. Sold right out in the open. This place had no rules. I counted stalls as I walked. The system had told me the crystal would appear at the 23rd stall near the entrance at sunrise. When I reached that spot, I found only an old one-armed man selling colorful stones. No crystal ball anywhere. I searched through his 30 or 40 rocks carefully. Nothing. Then the sun broke through the morning mist and lit up the city. Right at that moment, 3 men in worn clothes carrying heavy leather backpacks walked up beside me. They smelled of earth. The one in the middle was small and quiet, with a colorful toy propeller stuck in his backpack. A strange, almost childlike detail in a place like this. Without a word, they spread a dirty cloth on the ground next to the stall and started unpacking. The quiet man pulled out a yellowish crystal ball. My heart jumped. They had just set up in front of the old man's stall, making theirs the 23rd. The system was exactly right. I calmed myself and asked to look at their items. They agreed, just warning me to handle things gently since everything was old. I took my time. I examined each piece one by one for about 10 minutes before picking up the crystal ball. It was fist-sized, cold, covered in scratches from years underground. It looked completely ordinary. No one would ever guess that inside it hid the fragment of a god's power, something that could drive the entire world mad. I set it back down casually and kept browsing, as if I had no special interest in it. Then I started asking prices. An ivory bowl, 10 gold. An ivory cup, 12. I asked about several items before pointing at the crystal ball. 10 gold coins. I pretended to hesitate, picked 7 items, put 4 back, and kept 3, including the crystal. I asked for a bulk discount. They said they never bargained, but offered all 3 for 28 gold. I countered with 20 silver coins, practically nothing. The man's face changed. He said it was robbery. After a long back and forth, we settled on 20 gold coins for all 3 pieces. Both sides seemed satisfied. The seller next to us looked regretful. He wished he'd tried to sell to me first. Before I left, I noticed the colorful toy propeller on the quiet man's backpack. I asked if he'd part with it. He paused, then took it off with a small smile. My daughter gave it to me this morning. But if you like it, take it, his daughter. Even tomb raiders in this harsh world had people they loved and came home to. I thanked him and walked out of the black market holding a colorful bamboo dragonfly in one hand and a bag of ancient relics in the other. My face was calm, but inside I was barely holding it together. The swamp god's divine fragment was mine. The most precious treasure in this world, bought for 20 gold coins at a dirty stall in the slums. In just 2 days, I had drawn the ultimate card. The moment I stepped out of the black market, the intelligence system activated on its own. Completing the 6-star mission had unlocked 3 bonus pieces of information. Apparently, finishing any mission rated 4 stars or higher triggers extra intelligence. The first told me how to use the divine fragment. I needed to drip my blood onto the crystal ball, and the swamp divinity core would merge with my soul. The catch was that I'd fall into a deep sleep for 10 hours during the process, so I had to make sure I was somewhere safe. The second piece was about tomorrow's territory selection. Among the available lands, there was one called the Muddy Swamp, and hidden inside it was a fragment of swamp authority. A divine core is just an empty container. Authority is the actual power that fills it. Without both, divine power is useless. I had to claim that territory before any other frontier lord got to it. The third piece told me about the slave market in District 2. A trading company called Dragonfang was going to auction 2 squads of swamp lizard folk tomorrow afternoon. 200 fighters, all level 6 junior knights. The traders couldn't control them anymore and wanted to sell fast, well below market value. Normally, a single level 6 knight costs 100 gold coins. With the divinity core, I could bring these lizard folk under my command and make them the first army of my new territory. I had only a few dozen gold coins left. I wasn't sure I could afford them all, but if I came up short, well, Princess Felina and I were already on good terms. Borrowing a little more shouldn't be too hard. I took a carriage to the Rose House, the finest inn in Lawrence City, owned by Felina herself. The cheapest room cost 1 gold coin a night. An ordinary worker earned 6 gold in an entire year. But I wasn't spending money for luxury. The Rose House sat about a kilometer from the Grand Duke's mansion, in the most heavily guarded part of the city. After what I was about to do, I needed the safest place I could find. I checked in, went up to the 10th floor using a dwarf-built elevator, hung a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, locked up, and drew the curtains. I set 3 items on the table and pushed the other 2 aside. Only the scratched-up crystal ball mattered now. I read the instructions one more time. Then I bit my finger. A drop of blood fell onto the crystal. The moment it touched, the ball exploded with light, turning the dim room bright as day. A strange energy surged around it, swirling but not spreading beyond the crystal. Then the blood guided that energy into my body. What poured into me felt sacred, vast, and endless, like staring into a sky full of stars. It was so powerful that even my soul felt cleansed. The energy kept coming until it reached some kind of limit and finally settled. The crystal glowed like a small sun for 5 straight hours, sending out waves of holy, untouchable power. Then, slowly, it went dark. It slipped from my hand and fell onto the bed. The room went quiet. No trace of energy remained. I was already deep asleep. Somewhere inside me, my soul was changing into something new. I don't know how long I slept, but when I finally opened my eyes, everything had changed. Deep inside my mind, I could feel a whirlpool of deep blue energy, vast and powerful like the sea. A word appeared in my thoughts, seed of magic. I had become a mage. Not just a beginner either. Somehow, the divine fragment had pushed me all the way to level 3 apprentice mage in a single night. A new panel appeared in my mind, showing my full attributes. The intelligence system had unlocked an extra function. I could now see everything clearly. My level, my mana, my skills, all of it. I had 2 new abilities. Touch of the Wetlands could heal living things in a small area, working especially well on swamp creatures. Divine might let me release the lingering pressure of the swamp god to intimidate a target. If it worked, the target's soul would be marked and become permanently loyal. If it failed, they'd attack me instead. My potential was listed at 2 stars, meaning I could reach level 9 at most on my own. But the most important line was the divine core, swamp, 10%. When I focused my mind, I could sense it at the center of my magic seed, a broken, glowing blue sphere radiating ancient pressure like a god being slowly reborn. If I could find the remaining fragments and gather them all, I could one day become a true deity. I stood up, opened the curtains, and looked out at the sunset painting the sky gold and red. The city of Lawrence stretched out below me, grand and alive. I clenched my fist toward the horizon. For the first time since arriving in this world, I felt like I had a real chance. The next morning, July 9th, I put on the one thing I'd refused to sell, a black noble robe with a golden iris embroidered on it, the crest of the Els family. Before inheriting my title, I wasn't even allowed to wear it. Wearing a noble crest without permission was a serious crime in this empire. But now I was Baron Lear Els again, and this robe was the last trace of my family's history. I arrived at the Grand Duke's mansion, where the territory selection ceremony would be held. More than 100 frontier lords had already gathered in a large hall, standing in small groups and talking quietly. Every one of them wore their family crests proudly, even the ones whose families had clearly fallen on hard times. Noble pride ran deep here. I found an empty seat. Two nobles in white robes sat beside me, talking excitedly about the Grand Duke and his legendary strength, how he'd defeated a dragon with his bare hands 100 years ago. Then they started talking about Felina, hoping she might appear today. They called her the flower of the north, the rose of Lauren. The younger one said that just being noticed by her would be worth everything. I listened quietly. What interested me wasn't her beauty or her title. It was what kind of reward she'd give me. A goddess shouldn't be stingy. Then the hall went silent. Felina walked in through the main entrance, wearing a white gown with silver thread and long black lace gloves. Her hair floated behind her like it weighed nothing. Every pair of eyes followed her. The frontier lords bowed deeply, one after another. The two nobles beside me dropped to one knee, faces red with excitement, like they wanted to kiss the ground she walked on. She moved through the crowd and stopped in front of me. Our eyes met. I placed my hand on my shoulder and gave a proper noble's greeting, a small bow of the head. Nothing more. She smiled faintly and returned the same gesture. A companion's greeting, equal to equal. Everyone else had received only a nod, the kind you give to subordinates. Good day, Lord Lyrels. Good day, Princess Felina. The two nobles kneeling beside me looked up with wide eyes. Who was I? Why had their goddess greeted me personally? Their grand knightly bows hadn't earned them a single glance. And here I was, receiving a companion's greeting while sitting in a chair. They looked like clowns who'd just realized the joke was on them. Felina's greeting put every eye in the hall on me, but neither of us cared. She was used to being the center of attention, and after merging with the divine fragment, my mindset had changed. Even someone as extraordinary as her couldn't shake my focus anymore. She stepped onto the platform and gave a speech. Her voice started soft and grew powerful, talking about the empire's 2,000-year history, about ancestors who bled for its glory, about how every person standing here had already proven their courage by choosing this path. She called us heroes. The crowd ate it up. Faces flushed, blood boiling. Everyone ready to charge into the wilderness right then and there. I understood the feeling better than most. You had to live as a fallen noble, broke, forgotten, clinging to the last scraps of pride, to truly understand what those words meant. Then she moved to the real business. A magic map appeared behind her, glowing blue, alive with flowing rivers and swaying trees. It showed the wilderness surrounding Lauren City, built from over 1,000 years of exploration. Green zones marked territories already claimed or still within their 5-year development period. Everything else was open. There were maybe 200 or 300 green zones scattered across the map. Half had town icons. Compared to the vast wilderness, they looked tiny. In 1,000 years, only about 100 territories had been successfully established, most of them small towns within 300 to 500 kilometers of the city. That alone told you everything about the survival rate of frontier lords. Some people's excitement cooled when they saw those numbers, but others burned hotter, staring at the town icons with hungry eyes. A few of those settlements had grown to over 200,000 people. The families who built them held real power. And Lauren City itself, the greatest city in the north, had been founded 1,000 years ago by the first frontier lord, the original Duke of Lauren. If he could do it, why not them? Felina told everyone to begin choosing. I spoke up first. Your Highness, I have already made my choice. Every head turned toward me. Felina's eyes flickered with curiosity. Lord Lyrels, your choices. I pointed at the map. The muddy swamp. The hall erupted. People couldn't believe it. The muddy swamp was over 1,000 kilometers from Lauren City, more than half a month of travel. No one in history had ever successfully built a territory that deep into the wilderness. Felina warned me herself. She said the dangers that far out were beyond imagination. I answered quietly, if no one has done it, then I will be the first. The room went still. Then I saw something shift in the faces around me. Respect. Whatever they thought of my chances, the words themselves struck a nerve. That was the whole point of being a frontier lord, wasn't it? Going where no one else dared. Felina looked at me for a long moment. Lord Lear, your courage is admirable. I could tell she was genuinely curious. She couldn't figure out where a poor, fallen noble had found this kind of confidence. But I knew something she didn't. Hidden in that swamp was a fragment of divine authority, the missing piece that would make my divinity core complete. The swamp wasn't a death trap for me. It was exactly where I needed to be. I didn't stay long after choosing my territory. The lizard folk auction was this afternoon, and tomorrow would bring a new refresh of the intelligence system. I had plenty to do. But as I was leaving the hall, Felina's blonde maid Jasmine stopped me and asked me to follow her to a side room. Felina wanted to see me. I waited a few minutes before she walked in, graceful as always, her long hair floating behind her. She started by reminding me I still owed her 100 gold coins. I told her we were friends and that once I built my territory, I'd pay her back double. She laughed at the word, friends, and said it was an honor. Then she got to the point. She told me the blue crystal grass had been retrieved successfully. It turned out to be an ingredient she needed for her promotion, from level 16 to level 17. No wonder she'd been so eager to find it. I told her we were even. She got what she needed for her advancement, and I got 100 gold coins when I had nothing. She smiled and said I couldn't count things that simply. She'd sent someone to look into my situation and had prepared supplies for me. Jasmine handed me a list. I read through it carefully. Food, farming tools, ironware, 30 wagons worth of goods. But the real treasure was at the bottom. 1,000 gold coins in cash, 200 sets of standard Lauren City Guard armor, and 100 slave craftsmen. The armor alone was worth a fortune. 20 gold coins per set, 200 sets. That was 4,000 gold coins total. A common worker would need 800 years to earn that much. I looked at her and told her I would remember her kindness. She teased me for being too formal between friends. I paused, then smiled. Then let's get to know each other again. I am Exiled. Greetings, Felina Lauren. Her maid's expression shifted. Calling the princess by her first name was unheard of. But Felina sensed the sincerity behind it. Something softened in her eyes, and she returned the greeting the same way. Greetings, Exiled. I am Felina Lauren. Then she waved her hand, and a small wooden cage appeared out of thin air. Inside sat a chubby gray insect munching on green leaves. It looked like nothing special, just a fat bug. She called it a swamp mud insect, something she'd found in ancient ruins. She said that according to legend, when fully grown, it could prey on dragons. But it had been sleeping in those ruins for too long, and even after feeding it many magical plants, she couldn't restore its power. She thought maybe returning it to a swamp would help. She gave it to me as a symbol of our friendship. I took the tiny creature on my finger and stared at it. This little thing could hunt dragons? Only in a fantasy world. But I knew something she didn't. My swamp divinity core controlled swamp life. If anything could wake this insect up, it was the power now living inside my soul. I thanked her, then reached into my chest and pulled out something of my own. The colorful bamboo dragonfly I'd gotten from the tomb raider at the black market. Crooked, childish, a toy his daughter had made for him. Her maid stared at it in disbelief. After everything the princess had given me, this was my gift in return? But Felina took it gently, smiling as she turned it over in her hands. Your gift, I accept it. It's the first time someone has given me such a special present. She stored it carefully, then pressed 3 fingers to her forehead and lifted her hand toward the sky. May the goddess be with you always. Her eyes were warm but serious as she looked at me. I understood what she meant without her saying it. Come back alive from the wilderness, my friend. I intended to. After leaving Felina, I got into a carriage and headed for the slave market. On the way, I thought about something interesting. When I'd looked at Felina earlier, a status panel had appeared in my mind showing her level. Archmage, level 16. Her potential was hidden behind question marks, too far above me to read. Her maid Jasmine was a level 12 advanced knight, strong enough to teach at the Royal Academy. The intelligence system could read other people's attributes too. That was incredibly useful. I kept 1,000 gold coins on me and sent the rest of Felina's supplies to the Rose House for safekeeping. The slave market was about an hour away in District 22, the biggest in the entire north. When I arrived, the place was nothing like the black market. It was massive, operating day and night. Dark Gothic buildings blocked out the sun. The walls were covered in stone carvings, knights charging, demons killing, angels descending. Rose-shaped stained glass windows cast dim, colored light inside. The streets were wide but packed with people, and the air was thick with the smell of sweat, rot, and waste. On both sides of the street, slave traders displayed rows of steel cages stacked on top of each other. Inside were slaves from every race imaginable: orcs, goblins, half-elves, snake people, minotaurs, barbarians. Some were captured soldiers, some were civilians taken by traders, and some were humans who had sold themselves out of hunger. The most common were orcs, strong, brutal, and popular with buyers. But at 200 gold coins each, I couldn't afford many. I found the Dragonfang Trading Guild quickly. The sign out front had a permanent magic spell on it. Anyone who looked at it could instantly understand the words, even if they couldn't read. A mental message straight into your brain. The guild master, a cheerful, chubby merchant named Macon, greeted me warmly. He started pitching his best-selling slaves, orcs and minotaurs. I cut straight to the point and asked about swamp creatures. He looked surprised but offered 3 types: swamp orcs at 50 gold each, half-fish people at 20, and mud dwarves at 20. All decent for swamp life, but none were what I needed. I asked if he had anything stronger. He thought about it and said no. Swamps were rare in the wilderness, so swamp slaves were hard to come by. No lizard folk. My stomach tightened. Was the system's information wrong? Then a young worker rushed over and whispered something to Macon. I caught the words, "wetland lizard men," and rebelled again. Macon's face twisted with frustration. He muttered about trying to sell them to the arena, but even the arena had refused. The lizard folk were too savage to manage. I spoke up immediately. "Wetland lizard men? What level are they?" Macon turned to me, hesitating. He said they were all level 6 junior knights, but extremely fierce. Even with slave rings, he couldn't control their aggression. He honestly advised me to buy swamp orcs or half-fish people instead. I appreciated his honesty. He could have just dumped them on me without warning. But I insisted on seeing them. I told him maybe the lizard folk weren't as bad as he thought. He laughed at that. What I didn't know was that a week ago there had been 3 squads. Now only 2 remained. The lizard folk had been killing each other or their handlers, and numbers were dropping fast. He shrugged and agreed to take me to see them. Better to sell them quickly, he said, before there was only 1 squad left. I followed Macon into the back hall. It was wider than the front, filled with iron cages stacked 3 layers high. The air was surprisingly clean. They maintained this area well. We passed rows of chained slaves until we reached the center, where 20 cages sat on the ground. Inside were my targets, wetland lizard folk. They were impressive. Thick scales covered their bodies, green and gray-brown, natural camouflage for swamp life. They stood upright on muscular legs, with fingers sharp as daggers. Their lizard heads had amber eyes full of fury, and when they opened their mouths, their teeth looked like razors. My status panel activated automatically. Level 6 junior knights, 1-star potential, meaning they'd already hit their natural ceiling. They had 2 skills: scales, which gave them armor-like defense, and ferocity, which made them enter a berserk state when fighting or taking damage, fearless of pain, attacking without stopping. The moment we got close, they went wild. They screamed curses in their lizard language, charged the bars, and bit the iron with screeching sounds. Even chained at the hands, feet, and neck, they showed zero fear. Macon explained the situation. A week ago, there had been over 340 of them. Now only 203 remained. The Ring of Enslavement, a magic device that transfers pain directly to the soul, normally broke any slave's will. Even orcs couldn't resist it. But these lizard folk could. When a slave resists the ring hard enough, it detonates and blows their head apart. Over 100 lizard folk had died that way already. They'd rather die than submit. For a slave trader, that was a nightmare. For me, it was perfect. A force of killing machines that feared neither pain nor death. If I could make them truly loyal instead of forcing obedience, they'd be the most terrifying army a frontier lord could ask for. And with my swamp divinity core, I could do exactly that. Macon offered them at 20 gold coins each, far below what he'd paid. I countered with 10. His face twitched, but he could see I wasn't desperate. He knew nobody else wanted these creatures. He gritted his teeth and agreed. I told him there was one problem. I only had 1,000 gold coins on me. 200 lizard folk at 10 gold each meant 2,000 total. I asked to pay 1,000 now and the rest in 3 days. Tomorrow the intelligence system would refresh, and I was confident I could earn the difference. And if not, Well, Felina and I were practically old friends by now. Borrowing another 1,000 shouldn't be too hard. Before Macon could answer, two lizard folk went berserk in their cages. They smashed their heads and claws against the bars, screaming with terrifying fury. Then, two explosions. Their heads burst like watermelons. Blood everywhere. The rings of enslavement had detonated. They'd resisted the soul-tearing pain until the very end. Macon's face went stiff. He turned to me, trying to apologize, but before he could finish, another explosion. A third lizard man dead. The blood smell was overwhelming. Macon lost it completely. 1,000 gold coins. Take them all. Right now? Get them out of here. He was done. He never wanted to see these creatures again. I handed over the money without hesitating. The sight of exploding heads and the thick smell of blood made my heart race. I'd seen dead bodies in the alleys of the 9th District before, but never anything like this. I forced myself to breathe slowly and push the feeling down. In this world, there's no room for weakness. Scenes like this would become normal soon enough. I handed Macon the bag of gold coins. He took it and was about to check the amount when he noticed something, the rose pattern on the bag. His eyes went wide. That mark belonged exclusively to Princess Felina. No one in the city would dare copy it. He looked at me differently after that. I told him plainly that the coins were a gift from the princess and that most frontier lords aren't wealthy. Accepting help is just practical. He swallowed hard, nodding along. But I could see his mind racing, trying to figure out who I really was. His respect went up another notch when a servant confirmed the gold was genuine. He handed me a staff, half an arm long, used to control the rings of enslavement around the lizard folks' necks. The rings drew energy from the slaves themselves, so they'd work as long as the slaves were alive. Any resistance would trigger punishment automatically. I told him to deliver the lizard folk to the Rose House. He agreed, but warned me there might be losses during transport. These creatures were like ticking bombs. I turned to face the cages. The lizard folk were restless, screaming curses in their harsh language, eyes burning with defiance even through shackles and slave rings. It was time to use my power. I reached into the swamp divinity core inside my soul and released divine might, the lingering pressure of the swamp god itself. Shut up, 2 words. To anyone else in the room, it sounded ordinary. But to the lizard folk, it was thunder. It was their god looking down at them. The deepest fear written into their very nature. These creatures had endured torture, starvation, and soul-tearing pain from the slave rings without breaking. But this was different. This wasn't pain, it was origin. The pressure came from the source of what they were. They'd been captured recently, starved, beaten, locked in cages where they could die any moment. Their bodies were fierce, but their souls were already worn thin. Within seconds, every one of them stopped thrashing. Their ferocity melted into trembling submission. They bowed their heads and went completely silent. I felt my mental power spread outward, pressing a mark into each of their souls. The moment the marks took hold, I could sense the change. Their hostility dissolved into obedience and something even stronger. Worship. From now on, these 200 swamp warriors were mine. Macon stood behind me, frozen. He swallowed hard. These were the same creatures that had resisted every form of torture his people could devise. The same monsters that would rather have their heads explode than obey. And I'd silence them with 2 words. I spoke calmly to the lizard folk. Cooperate with the transport. I will take you back to the wilderness. The last traces of restlessness vanished. Macon snapped out of his daze and scrambled to give orders. 2 squads of level 9 armored knights arrived to escort the lizard folk. Even these elite fighters looked uneasy about handling swamp creatures known for their savagery. But today was different. The lizard folk didn't resist. When Macon nervously asked if we could remove the shackles to make transport easier, I said yes. He tested it on a few, and they just stood there, calm and obedient, as if the madness and violence of the past week had never happened. Macon looked at me with something close to awe. He didn't understand how I'd done it. He didn't need to. All that mattered was that my first army was ready, and we were heading to the Rose House. After the lizard folk were taken away, Macon told me I was welcome back anytime. The Dragonfawn Guild would give me their best prices. I thanked him and took the carriage he arranged back to the Rose House. Jasmine was waiting at the door when I arrived. She told me Felina's supplies had been placed in the side courtyard. though the 100 craftsmen wouldn't arrive until tomorrow. Just as we were talking, the transport carriage pulled up and the lizard folk climbed out. 200 swamp warriors covered in gray-green scales, muscles bulging, amber eyes cold and sharp. The guards at the door shivered just looking at them. I tipped the escort leader about 10 silver coins for his trouble, and he left happy. Jasmine asked if I'd bought them as guards. I smiled and said yes, though in my mind they were much more than that. They were the foundation of my entire expansion. She asked when I planned to leave for my territory. Every frontier lord gets 1 month to prepare, with a possible extension up to 3 months. After that, imperial law treats you as a deserter. I told her I'd decide tomorrow but would leave within half a month. She nodded and led me and the lizard folk to the side courtyard where the supplies were stored. The yard was huge, bigger than many small noble estates. Horses grazed near the wagons, and on the ground sat a small mountain of armor, gleaming with cold metallic light. I checked the armor with my status panel. 1-star quality, made from refined steel with dwarven techniques, designed to fit most humanoid beings under 2 meters tall. Each set came with a sharp steel sword. 200 sets total. I gave the order. Everyone, put on the armor. The lizard folk moved immediately, helping each other strap on the pieces. At about 1.70 meters, they fit the armor perfectly. The black steel made them look even more terrifying. Amber eyes glowing above dark metal, sharp swords in their clawed hands. Thick tails poking through specially made openings in the back. With their natural scale defense plus the armor on top, their fighting power had jumped to a completely new level. 200 fully armed level 6 junior knights stood before me in formation. 2 days ago, I was starving in a 10-square-meter room in the 9th district, eating black bread harder than rock. Now I had divine power, an army, 30 wagons of supplies, and 1,000 gold coins. The future felt real for the first time. Jasmine excused herself. She had duties to attend to. I offered her a tip like I had the escorts, but she politely refused. As the princess's personal attendant, she didn't need the money. Later, back at the Rose estate, Jasmine reported everything to Felina. She mentioned the lizard folk and how strangely obedient they were, creatures famous for their savage fury, acting like tamed kittens around me. Felina wasn't surprised. She simply smiled and said it made sense. Jasmine asked if that didn't strike her as strange, but Felina had already figured out what most people hadn't, that a man who could walk out of the slums, look a princess in the eye without flinching, and call her a friend to her face was never going to be ordinary. She looked out her window at the blue sky, her thoughts hidden behind those gem-like eyes, and said nothing more. After Jasmine left, I asked the lizard folk who their leader was. They all looked at one, taller and stronger than the rest by half a head. He stepped forward, knelt on one knee, and spoke in rough but understandable common language. Master, Haggis sends you his highest regards. I told him to keep everyone in line while we stayed in the city a few more days. He obeyed without question. Every word I spoke was law to them now. I checked all 200 lizard folk, hoping to find a hero unit among them. In this world, there's a rare chance during leveling up to undergo a hero transformation, awakening a special talent that multiplies combat power several times over. But the odds are about 1 in 50,000, and none of my lizard folk had it. A small disappointment. I called the Rose House staff to bring good food for the lizard folk and went back to my room alone. Standing by the window, I watched the sunset and took stock of everything. In just a few days, I'd chosen my territory, the muddy swamp, with its hidden fragment of divine authority. I'd bought 200 level 6 warriors for 1,000 gold coins. I'd built a real connection with Felina Lauren. I had over 70 gold coins left, 30 wagons of supplies, 200 sets of armor, and the swamp divinity core merged with my soul. Not bad for someone who was eating rock-hard black bread in a slum 3 days ago. That night, I waited for midnight. The dwarf clock towers rang 12 times across the city. July 10th. The intelligence system was ready to refresh. I gave the command instantly. 5 new pieces of information appeared. The first was 1 star. A town would be attacked by harpies tomorrow. Too far away and not my problem. The second was also 1 star but interesting. It was about Felina's past. As a child, her carriage was robbed by bandits. She hid in rose bushes and survived, and that experience awakened her special talent, the Rose Lord. That explained why everything around her involved roses, her estate, her inn, even her magic. The third was 2 stars and made me excited. At the black market, stall 24, the one-armed old man's stall, right next to where I'd bought the divine fragment. One of his stones hid an ancient beast crystal core. Most of its energy was drained, but it was still powerful. If I fed it to Haggis, my strongest lizard man, it could trigger a bloodline evolution. No other lizard man could survive the transformation. Just when I'd been wishing for a hero unit, the system delivered exactly what I needed. The fourth was also 2 stars. In the slave market, District 5, Shop 19, a guild called Grey Mist was selling what they thought was ordinary dried earth dragon dung. But it was actually from a real adult dragon. The aura had just faded with time. Soaking it in blood would restore the dragon's scent. Carrying it through the wilderness would keep dangerous creatures away, making the long journey to the muddy swamp far safer. For a trip of over 1,000 kilometers through hostile territory, this was priceless. The fifth piece was 3 stars and the most urgent. In 20 days, a riot would break out 500 kilometers into the wilderness, wild races fighting over a shattered relic. If I didn't leave for my territory before July 15th, the chaos would block my path and delay me by 7 months. And the fragment of swamp authority hidden in my territory would revive within half a year. If I missed it, someone or something else would claim it first. I had to move fast. 5 days to prepare, then leave. No golden 6-star secrets this time, but the 5 pieces together gave me a clear plan. Upgrade Haggis, buy dragon dung for safe travel, and get on the road before the wilderness erupted into war. I lay on the bed, turning over each piece of information in my mind, planning tomorrow's moves. Then sleep pulled me under. Early on July 10th, I went to the slave market before sunrise. The morning fog helped with the smell. I found the Grey Mist trading house in District 5, a small shop that didn't sell slaves, but everything related to them: shackles, chains, neck locks, spiked whips. On a shelf, I spotted bunches of dried droppings. Most were fresh earth dragon dung, but down at the bottom, almost hidden, sat an older, dusty pile, clearly different from the rest. My status panel confirmed it. 2-star quality, genuine dragon dung. Soaking it in blood would reactivate the dragon's aura, scaring away any creature during wilderness travel. The shop owner, a sharp-faced, thin man in a gem-studded robe, tried to sell it to me as premium level 12 earth dragon dung at a generous discount. I cut him off. I told him nobody else wanted this stuff. It was losing potency sitting on his shelf, and if I didn't need to travel far into the wilderness, I wouldn't take it for free. We settled on 20 silver coins for the whole pile, at least 10 to 20 pounds of what was secretly 2-star dragon treasure. He thought he'd pulled off a brilliant sale of worthless junk. I walked out in under 2 minutes with enough dragon aura to protect my entire caravan through 1,000 kilometers of hostile territory. The next day, July 11th, I went back to the black market. The one-armed old man at stall 24 recognized me immediately. The fool, who'd spent 20 gold on Tomb Raider items a few days ago. He brightened up and started his pitch, claiming he had fresh stock with dragon blood gold mixed in. I ignored his sales talk and quietly searched through his ores. None of them mattered. What I wanted was the dark stone he kept rubbing in his hand, the one he used to look impressive while sitting at his stall. My panel had already told me what it really was: an ancient beast crystal core. Most of its energy was drained, but it was still extraordinary, enough to trigger a bloodline evolution in Haggis, my strongest lizard man. I asked to see it. He was delighted, thinking he'd hooked a big fish. He claimed it contained a rare metal called silver and started at 50 gold coins. I tossed it aside and turned to leave. He chased after me. 30 gold coins. Then 20. I pulled out 10 silver coins and held them in my open palm without saying a word. He stared at my hand, took a deep breath, and told me I was going to be the death of him. Before he even finished the sentence, the coins vanished from my hand and the stone was shoved into it. He thought he'd fleeced a fool, selling a river rock for 10 silver coins. Meanwhile, I was walking away with the key to creating my first hero unit. Both treasures secured, the ancient beast crystal core and the dragon dung, for a total of 30 silver coins. Using information to build wealth quietly felt incredible. Back at the Rose house, Jasmine was waiting again. The 100 slave craftsmen Felina had promised had arrived. They stood in the side courtyard like statues, terrified of the armored lizard folk nearby. Jasmine explained they were swamp dwellers, a race that preferred damp places and was naturally gifted at building and crafting. Their only weakness was being timid. Felina had brought them from another city specifically for me. I checked their attributes. Level 4, 1-star potential, with a racial talent called Craftsman's Heart that gave them extra creativity and skill in construction and toolmaking. Born craftsman, exactly what a frontier lord needs. Jasmine also handed me a scroll, a magic map that would guide me through the wilderness to my territory. Normal frontier lords got maps that lasted 3 months before the magic faded. But this one was a personal gift from Felina, clearly far better. When I opened it, the terrain moved like a living painting. Mountains, rivers, trees, all flowing. A 6-pointed star marked the muddy swamp at the end, and a flashing dash showed my current location in Lawrence City. It was like a fantasy version of GPS. The map's quality told me how much this gift was worth. I owed Felina a serious debt, and I intended to repay it someday. Jasmine wished me a glorious return, placed her hand on her chest, bowed, and left without looking back. I turned to the swamp dwellers. An elderly one with curly hair and a hunched back stepped forward, bowed deeply, and introduced himself as Bane. When I checked his attributes, my heart jumped. He was a hero unit. Level 5, 2-star potential. With a hero talent called Construction, he could plan large-scale structures, save building costs, and strengthen durability. His skills included both skillful hands and planning. A hero perfectly suited for building a territory. I told him he'd come with me tomorrow morning and that I'd need his help going forward. He accepted humbly. I looked over my full force, over 100 swamp dweller craftsmen and 200 armored wetland lizard folk. For an expansion lord, this was an impressive start. 200 level 6 knights alone would normally cost 40,000 gold coins. Add the armor, craftsmen, and 30 wagons of supplies, and some noble families would have to empty their entire fortune to match what I had. I told Bane to inspect all the supplies, figure out what we still needed, and buy everything today. We'd leave for the wilderness tomorrow. He was excited but nervous, especially when he had to walk past the lizard folk. I told him clearly that from now on, every lizard man was his ally. Their swords were only for enemies. He gathered his courage and got to work. The supplies were extraordinary. Felina had thought of everything: food, clothing, tools, all packed into 30 large wagons. One wagon held over 3,000 kilograms of noya rice, a 1-star magic food created by an ancient saint. Half a pound could keep a person full for 5 days. It was a strategic reserve that major powers hoarded, and she'd given me an entire wagon, enough to feed 300 people for half a year. With everything confirmed, I turned to the tallest, strongest figure among the lizard folk. Haggis, come with me. The ancient beast crystal core was in my pocket. It was time to turn my fiercest warrior into a hero. Bringing Hag, the fierce lizard man, into the room, Lyre took out a black mineral he bought from the black market, speaking seriously. There is an energy core of an ancient beast hidden inside, although most of it has faded over time, but it can still cause your bloodline to transform. Hag, are you willing to become a weapon in my hands? The wetland lizardman's heart trembled. Transform into a hero? His amber eyes shone with intense madness. Suddenly, he knelt down, his head touching the ground. With the most humble and frantic tone, he declared, "My lord, I am willing to become your blade, offering my soul to you. Where your gaze falls, that is where I will go." Strengthening oneself is the natural instinct of all living beings. Becoming a hero is the lifelong dream of most creatures. At this moment, countless nights of daydreaming about this opportunity are finally in front of him. Lyre nods slowly. After letting him stand up, he hands over the stone in his hand. Hags doesn't hesitate. He squeezes it hard, and with a cracking sound, the stone develops large cracks before shattering into pieces. Among the broken stones, a small object about the size of a thumb appears, glowing faintly with a red light. Vibrant energy radiates from it, as if holding a tiny sun. Eat it to complete your transformation. Hags takes a deep breath, suppresses his excitement, and swallows it in one gulp. In the next moment, his body suddenly erupts with a fierce, brutal aura. His face begins to twist. His body softens, and he collapses to the ground, growling like a beast. His whole body starts to twitch uncontrollably. It looks as if he's enduring a terrible, torturous pain. It's enough to send a chill down anyone's spine. Liar glances at the information again, at the 20-second stall selling minerals at the black market entrance. The merchant's mineral contains a hidden ancient beast crystal core. Although most of its energy has faded, it's still extraordinary. It can be fed to the strongest wetland lizard man, hags, to evolve his bloodline, while other lizard men cannot withstand the pain of transformation. A simple tip, but incredibly precise. Without hardship, how can one taste the sweetest fruit? Silently waiting, watching his face become more twisted and fierce, Liar can't imagine the pain the other is enduring. This is a life nearly immune to pain, one that even the ring of servitude cannot suppress. The process lasts a full 3 hours. During the ongoing transformation, Hags's body visibly grows larger. His height increases from 1.7 meters to 1.85 meters, and his presence becomes as aggressive as a beast. Even trembling on the ground, he still looks fierce and brutal. After another hour, Hags finally awakens from his transformation. He slowly stands up. His 1.85-meter body looks like a balloon inflated with air, with dwarf armor stretched tight by his muscles. His solid muscles are so prominent that even the armor can't hide them. The lizard man's head was ugly and fierce, with blood-filled jaws and sharp teeth like knives. Its amber eyes looked aggressive. Its 10-centimeter claws shimmered like cold blades, sharp as daggers. Ordinary armor couldn't stop its sharpness. It strode forward and knelt before Liar, lowering its head. "My lord, from now on, I will become your weapon, cutting through all obstacles for you." Haggis felt a surge of power inside him and was so excited he couldn't hold back. He advanced to a higher rank and became a hero. This was a scene he often dreamed about during many nights. Now his dream had come true, and all of this was a gift from the great ruler. Greatness needs no words. Liar's lips curled slightly. This was truly his first hero. Although living heroes like Bane played important roles, in battle, Haggis alone could defeat hundreds or even thousands of Banes. He looked at the kneeling wetland lizard hero in front of him and thought about the new attribute panel appearing in his mind. Haggis, level, mid-level knight, level 7. Potential, 2 stars, max level 9, race talent. Amphibious life, with a special lung organ that allows holding breath for a long time and short underwater breathing. Hero talent, regeneration, with a special body that can heal itself. After injury, it can quickly recover by consuming energy, and even broken limbs can grow back. Health points, 1000, skills. Scales, 2 stars, passive. The scales provide steel-like defense, reducing damage by 30%. Ferocity, 2 stars. When taking damage or attacking, it becomes extremely fierce, increasing all attributes by 30%, fearless of pain, and fighting relentlessly. Blood rage, 2 stars. After tasting blood, its size increases by 20% and strength by 40%. Equipment, none. Evaluation, a fierce swamp creature. Liar's eyes sparkled. After the transformation, his strength had greatly increased. His potential rose from 1 star to 2 stars, and his level cap reached 9. His original level 6 also increased to 7. At the same time, he awakened a powerful hero talent, regeneration. After being injured, one can use their energy and blood to recover and even regrow lost limbs. This is definitely a skill that transforms everything. In battle, the already fierce and pain-tolerant lizard men gain the ability to recover quickly. It reminded me of the Hulk. Isn't this like a young, fantasy version of the Hulk? Haggis also gained a new attribute, vitality, which is unique to the Night Path. You must become a hero to awaken it. Vitality can strengthen skills and deal extra damage. It's a sign of high combat power. Only with vitality can someone truly be called a hero. However, the mage. From the start, they already have magic power. That's why mages are called mage lords. The Night Path requires hero status to gain certain powers, but apprentice mages can get them early. Haggis's 2 original 1-star skills were all upgraded to 2 stars, greatly increasing his attributes. He also gained a new skill, Frenzied Blood, which is very fierce. Overall, after becoming a hero, Haggis's individual combat ability skyrocketed. Now, he can easily fight off 2 or 3 squads of marshland lizardmen alone. This is what a hero unit can do. A hero unit with endless charm. Heroes like Bane, who focus on everyday skills, will only be followers. True strength decides fate. Get up, go back and control your companions. Tomorrow morning, we leave for the territory. That will be our future home. Haggis took a deep breath and lowered his head. As you wish. As Haggis left the room, the intelligence system quietly revealed new information. You have trained a hero unit and gained an extra piece of intelligence. There is a magical plant called white flower long-leaf grass growing in the muddy swamp. It contains special energy. After Haggis consumes it, his potential will increase to 3 stars. Liar was stunned at first, then couldn't help but smile after reading the new information. No way. There's more information? White flower leaf grass can increase Haggis's potential from 2 stars to 3 stars. A 2-star hero is pretty good, but the level cap is only 9. Raising to 3 stars makes him a true high-level hero. The most obvious benefit is that the level cap increases to 12. Overall combat power is boosted in ways that are not just simple addition. It feels great. With the support of the intelligence system, Haggis might become one of the top heroes in the future. At this moment, Haggis strides back to the side yard of the Rose house. When the wetlands lizardmen sense his presence, they look confused. After sensing carefully, they become restless. The aura on Lord Haggis. Hero? After confirming with Haggis, they are even more shocked. Their eyes become hot and crazy. What did the Lord of Domination give Haggis? Why did he transform into a hero in just a few hours? Long live the god of swamps. Could it be that the Lord of Domination is a divine being sent to save them? Bane sees this scene and looks more and more surprised. Only he knows how many difficulties and hardships he faced when he first became a hero. He never expected that a hero could be granted as a reward. For a moment, Liar suddenly becomes mysterious in his mind. After resting for a night, on July 12th, Liar gathers his army early in the morning and organizes supplies. After settling the bill at the Rose house, he rides the finest black horse in the convoy and has the swamp people catch up with the 30 wagons loaded with goods, slowly heading out of the city. 200 neatly arranged wetlands lizardmen follow as guards. The army is assembled and enters the wilderness. He has been looking forward to this day. His mood is very excited right now. In the early morning, there are not many pedestrians on the street, and the wide street is very empty. The thick bluestone pavement is over 150 meters wide, with 8 lanes for carriages on each side, leaving enough space for pedestrians. There are 20 main roads crossing and connecting the entire city of Lorland. Just transporting these blue stones into the city is an enormous and impressive project. The buildings with pointed roofs stand tall along both sides of the street. These houses are old and exquisite, varying in height, interlocking like teeth. Colorful floating glass reflects bright light, and the intricate hero carvings on the walls tell the story of this city's past and glory. At the corner of the cross street stands a clock tower over 20 meters tall. A large, dwarf-cast, sharply edged brass clock is ticking steadily. At exactly 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock, the city is filled with the loud chimes of the clock. No matter where you are, you can hear the sound of time. The Lauren family took 1,000 years to build this magnificent city. It is also the strongest shield of the northern province of the Griffin Empire, defending against the invasion of the wilderness. A shining jewel. Beyond the busy streets, a convoy slowly passes through the tall and grand city gate of Lauren. Lior looks back. The towering city walls seem like mighty mountains that never move. They are over 100 meters high. The walls are covered with signs of war, like a veteran with many battles. On the walls stand various heavy siege weapons. Catapults, heavy crossbows, arrow towers. Countless and densely packed. At the gate, 2 giant statues, each 120 meters tall, hold heavy swords and stand majestically like divine beings, their swords crossing in midair. They seem to declare to the outside world that Lawrence City is invincible. These 2 statues have been rebuilt over 10 times after wars. Each time, they grow taller than before. They are almost symbols of Lawrence City. A crisp eagle cry breaks the silence. making Lior instinctively look up. In the sky, hundreds of imperial emblems, griffins with wings spanning over 10 meters, soar and glide. These fierce creatures form a sky defense line, ready to take flight at any moment, with 10 or even 100 times more in number if needed. Lior takes a deep look at this grand city, feeling a surge of pride. In the future, his territory should be just as magnificent. Without hesitation, he waves his hand, signaling the army to speed up. Outside the city are endless fields of farmland, stretching as far as the eye can see. The lush green wheat fields sway gently in the breeze, creating a scene of endless beauty. After traveling more than 10 kilometers, Lawrence City gradually disappears from view. In this magical world filled with magic, even timid craftsmen like mud people are much stronger than humans on Earth. The march is not slow. Starting early in the morning, we stopped for a rest at a roadside well at noon. We had traveled about 30 kilometers in several hours, but no one looked very tired. Last night, we ate dinner made from noya rice, so we don't need to cook for the next few days. This saves us a lot of trouble. The area around Lorland City, extending over hundreds of kilometers, is a safe zone. Guards patrol every day, and if they find any threats, they clear them immediately. Lorland City has wide roads paved with blue stones, perfect for easy travel. Washing my face with clean water, I felt my tiredness fade. We kept moving forward. At sunset, we traveled another 40 kilometers before setting up camp. Traveling 70 kilometers in a day is already quite fast. This also gave Lear a new understanding of the strength of ordinary people in this fantasy world. Nighttime is very dangerous, so traveling at night is not safe. After arriving at a small town, the caravan stopped to rest. The next day, we continued, until noon, when we finally left the straight, wide bluestone road. The surface turned into uneven muddy paths, and our speed slowed down. The area from Lorland City to the wilderness, about 100 to 200 kilometers away, is a controlled zone. Every few days, Griffin patrols come to check the area. If they find a large group of monsters, they clear them out to prevent a big threat. However, some wild monsters still exist in small numbers. This area is currently off-limits for expansion by landowners. It is fully under Lorland City's control, and officials regularly send people to build villages and cultivate the land. Going further into the wilderness, 200 to 300 kilometers away, is a guarded zone. Every 2 weeks, Lorland City conducts patrols. If they find a large gathering of wild creatures, they send troops to eliminate them to prevent threats from reaching the controlled zone. This is also the area where most landowners choose to develop their territories. Several sizable settlements are established here. Because it is within Lorland City's influence, but not directly threatened by wilderness dangers, it is considered very safe. From 300 to 500 kilometers away is a monitored zone. Lorland City keeps an eye on this area. Even if they find large groups of monsters, they won't act unless the creatures enter the guarded zone. Therefore, the level of danger began to rise sharply. Beyond 500 kilometers lies true wilderness. Without development, Lorland City only sends out the Griffin Corps to patrol occasionally to prevent large-scale enemy gatherings in the wild. But even the Griffin patrols often suffer losses. Orcs, barbarians, snake people, gray dwarves, and undead. Almost every race has a stronghold deep in the wilderness. Their territories vary in size. It is said that far beyond the wilderness, there is a powerful ogre empire. They possess strength comparable to Lorland City. However, the journey is too long, and the wilderness blocks everything, so it cannot be confirmed. Entering the control zone 100 kilometers away, Lyre ordered Bane to take out some dried dragon dung and place it in a clay basin. Bane looked at the dried dragon dung with some worry. Master, if dragon dung is stored too long, it will lose its smell, and its effectiveness will decrease greatly. He looked a bit frustrated. When he checked the supplies earlier, he asked Lyre, who said everything was ready, so he didn't check carefully. Now he realizes he was careless. Without dragon dung, the monsters encountered might increase many times. This journey will become much more difficult. Lyre looked at the hunched swamp hero, whose face was full of wrinkles, and smiled. No need to worry. This isn't dragon dung. Hagras, add blood to it, he said, waving his hand. The swamp lizard hero behind him immediately stepped forward. He grabbed a strong, fat rooster weighing over 10 pounds from a cart. He twisted its neck and broke the head. Blood splattered as the rooster's wings flapped wildly, soaking the clay basin. In an instant, the dry dragon dung was soaked through. Within a few breaths, the surrounding magic seemed to be drawn into a black hole, pouring into the dung. An indescribable pressure radiated from the dung. Everyone felt a strange chill down their spines. It was as if a terrifying abyssal creature was watching them. Dragon dung. Bane took a few steps back, his legs trembling, and gasped in surprise. His eyes changed again. Adults can even get their hands on such things. The dragon is the top predator in this world. Pure-blooded dragons can become extraordinary after reaching old age. Anyone associated with a dragon, even those with mixed bloodlines, possesses strong power. The best way to survive is to avoid danger. No one wants to get close to the dragon's might. It's like approaching death. Lil nodded slightly, but said nothing more. Let the army continue moving forward. The dragon's presence can be felt up to 2 or 3 kilometers away. Sensitive creatures can even sense it from more than 10 kilometers. This greatly improves the safety of the convoy. After traveling for 2 more days, vehicles 13 and 14 crossed the control zone and entered a more dangerous warning zone. They are now over 200 kilometers from Lorland City, finally entering the wilderness. Tonight, they set up camp. After dinner, Lil didn't sleep right away, but waited quietly until late at night. Finally, the time on the panel reached midnight. July 15th. The information system in his mind quietly displayed new data. The information system has cooled down and can now be refreshed. Would you like to refresh? Lil's spirit lifted. It was time for the 3rd information refresh. Refresh. At the moment of confirmation, the system displayed the new information. 1. 20 kilometers ahead, in a forest of red leaves, you will encounter an ambush by 3 small ground elf squads. The strongest leader is level 5. 1 star. 2. The chief administrative officer of Lorland Duke's residence is a comrade of your father, with a deep friendship between them. 1 star. 3. Felina broke through to level 17 a day ago. As the youngest Grand Mage in the history of the Griffin Empire, her breakthrough was not announced. She is now collecting more types of rose flowers, which are her next opportunity for advancement. 2 stars. 4. Traveling along the road for 2 days, by noon on the 17th, a flock of man-eating crows will pass overhead, attracting level 13 monsters, storm birds. Using triple amounts of dragon droppings can drive away the carrion-eating crows and avoid the storm birds. 2 stars. 5. A group of barbarian blood thieves will appear in your area, marsh reeds near the water, on the evening of the 19th. You must hide dragon droppings and rest for 3 hours to avoid them. 2 stars. There are 5 pieces of intelligence. 2 are 1 star, and 3 are 2 star. Liar's eyes narrow as he carefully examines the information. First, there is an attack by Earth Gnomes. Earth Gnomes are a larger, more wild branch of the gnome race. However, their highest level is only 5, with just 3 small groups, so this is only worth 1 star. Even if they succeed in an attack, they are unlikely to cause much damage. The second piece of intelligence is more interesting. The chief officer of the Lord Land's estate is a former comrade of the protagonist's father. This detail was not in the protagonist's memory. It seems that on the next trip back to Lawn City, he should visit this person. This is a valuable connection that shouldn't be wasted. The third piece of intelligence. Has Felina advanced again? Level 17. The youngest Grand Mage of the Griffin Empire. Impressive. Even if he had some advantages, his talent is clear. A true prodigy. His next breakthrough will be to level 18. Wow, he's incredible. Only 24 years old. If he keeps growing for a few more years and becomes an extraordinary mage, there will be no doubt about his future. The intelligence about collecting more rose flowers to advance is also interesting. His talent is the Rose Lord, which is clearly related. He should check if there are roses in the wilderness and send some back to her. Before she fully develops, this connection is more valuable than gold. The fourth and fifth pieces of intelligence are warnings about danger. This shows how fierce the wilderness can be. Vultures, storm birds, and barbarian blood thieves. No need to say, they are all dangerous enemies. Without proper intelligence, encountering them would be terrifying. After reviewing the information twice, Liar feels more confident. His tension eases, and he falls into a deep sleep. The next morning, the lizard man guard wakes him, and he packs up to set out again. By noon, after traveling about 20 kilometers, the convoy encounters a large area of red leaf forest. A small, bright red leaf floats in the wind, like a flickering flame. Together with the surrounding green plants, it gives a lively and vibrant feeling. But Liar's eyes sharpened. Hags, I smell the goblin's scent. There are goblins hiding in the red leaf forest. All troops, prepare for battle. The wetland lizard men in armor immediately became excited upon hearing this. These swamp creatures are as obedient as kittens in front of Liar. But deep inside, they are still bloodthirsty and savage hunters. Liar leaves a squad to guard the convoy, while he takes Hags and the remaining squad to the red leaf forest. A small team of 10, 100 soldiers, 1,000 troops, and a 10,000 army. The military structure in this fantasy world is very simple and clear. As a lord expanding into the wilderness, bloodshed and killing will be the main themes for a long time. Having lived in modern times for so long, he rarely saw the chance to kill even a chicken, let alone brutal, bloody combat. He was just a fallen noble descendant struggling in the slums, often seeing corpses in foul water, but never experiencing the harshness of the battlefield. He needs to adapt to this crazy world, and he must. Let this battle be the beginning. Liar's eyes are deep. Entering the red leaf forest, the wetland lizard men immediately become alert. Their amber eyes glow with madness and brutality. Their noses twitch, and they look sharply in one direction. Master, we have found the goblin hideout. The wetland lizardman's sense of smell may not be as sharp as a hound's, but it is definitely much better than humans. Liar nods. Hags, I entrust you with leading the fight. He has two skills, Swamp Blessing and Divine Power. Divine Power is not a combat skill. Swamp Blessing is very powerful. It releases a burst of life energy over a 3 by 3 meter area, speeding up healing, restoring up to 20% of health, and up to 30% for swamp creatures. Although it has no destructive power, as a healing skill, it is quite strong. The Earth Elementals have only 3 squads, but for this first battle, he doesn't want any surprises. After leaving a small team to protect themselves, Hargs led the remaining 9 squads slowly toward the depths of the red leaf forest. These beings, wearing cold armor and with fierce looks, began their hunt. Within 200 meters, Hargs, a recently transformed 2-star hero of the marshland lizard men, looked excited. On a small hill, dozens of figures with green skin were crawling. Below the hill was a passage through the woods. A ground goblin. It had pointed ears almost reaching the back of its head, a mouth like open pincers full of sharp teeth, a triangular nose with a hooked tip, large blue eyes, and a sturdy build, with most over 1.75 meters tall. It looked quite strong. Compared to other goblins of its kind, it was a big one. Ground goblin, level, novice knight, level 4, race talent, brave and daring, overly confident and proud, never admits defeat to anyone, with 60% reduced rationality but always high morale. Skill, strong attack, 1 star, raises weapon high with both hands to unleash full strength, dealing 20% more damage, with a chance to cause stun and paralysis. Evaluation, inferior life form. These disgusting, foul-smelling beings also dare to play this game, thinking of sneaking up on them. They must be asking for death. Hargs clenched his steel dagger, his voice cold. Kill. With a low roar, the 9 squads of marshland lizardmen charged like arrows. The ground goblins, waiting for prey, instinctively turned their heads at the sound. They saw fierce lizardman warriors rushing toward them. But these beings, with their unique racial talents, did not fear. Instead, they roared loudly and counterattacked. It was as if armored marshland lizardman warriors were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Seeing the enemies not retreating but advancing, Hargs was furious. He felt his dignity was being trampled. Even bugs dare to challenge a dragon? He charged ahead first, swinging his steel dagger violently. At the front, a ground goblin also roared and swung a wooden club. At the moment of collision, crack, the steel blade, with terrifying force, directly cut through the wooden stick, astonishing the earth spirit. Crack, it slashed across the shoulder, splitting half of the body apart. Bones shattered, blood exploded out. Crimson blood scattered everywhere. A quick kill. Hags felt a bit of anger release inside, but he continued to slaughter with the wildest attitude. The ruler was still watching from behind. These scum deserve to die? The steel blade swung, needing no special tactics or hero's energy, just raw violence, cutting down the earth spirits one after another. The wetland lizard soldiers behind, seeing the danger, hurried to move faster. If they delayed any longer, these earth spirits would be gone. Faced with a group of crazy wetland lizards, the earth spirits had no chance to fight back. Even if they hit the lizard soldiers with wooden sticks, it only made a clanging sound. No real damage done. It was a one-sided slaughter. Lil watched all this from behind. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. These 3 squads of earth spirits were overwhelmed by the wetland lizards. No survivors. The strong smell of blood, broken limbs and guts, glaring blood, crimson grass and trees. All of it wildly stimulated his nerves. Compared to the scene of wetland lizards blowing up heads in the slave yard, this was 100 times more intense. Leal's heart trembled, but he didn't look away from the battlefield. His gaze was firm as he stepped into the bloody chaos, passing through the scattered remains, to stand before Hags, who was covered in blood. He patted his companion's shoulder in admiration. "Good job, Hags." His voice was a little hoarse, but full of determination. He turned his head to look at the horrifying battlefield and the scattered bodies. His eyes grew deeper. This is just the beginning. War and slaughter will continue to grow alongside the development of the territory, constantly emerging. Hags felt an inexplicable change happening to his ruler. His aura became sharper, and when they looked at each other, he felt a strange sense of unease. A not-so-intense battle came to an end, marking the start of the wilderness exploration. After regaining his composure, Lyre waved his hand and ordered Haggis and his team to clean up the battlefield. However, the goblin, being a poor creature, still struggled to survive in the wilderness, with little to gain. After searching, they found nothing and had to give up. They regrouped. The 2 small teams of lizard men continued to scout ahead, while Lyre led the main force to keep a safe distance. This was to prevent any unexpected surprises. But a 2-star dragon's droppings emitted a strong pressure that was quite intimidating. Even deep in the wilderness, they hadn't been ambushed by monsters. If it weren't for the unique racial talent of the earth goblin, these creatures might not have dared to come close to the dragon's aura. They kept moving forward. It was now the 2nd day, July 17th. At dawn, the convoy set out, and Lyre ordered 3 soaked portions of dragon droppings. By noon, he increased the amount to 4 portions. Each portion of dragon droppings could emit dragon's might for 5 days before quickly fading. These 10 pounds of droppings were enough to reach the swamp. The overwhelming dragon's might from the 4 portions made the naturally timid swamp dwellers tremble. Even knowing it was just dragon droppings, they still felt a strong sense of unease. They kept glancing back at the clay basin behind them. Even the fierce lizard men showed obvious agitation. Dragons, being at the top of the food chain, had a terrifying presence that deeply affected ordinary creatures' spirits. Bane, a naturally timid swamp hero, felt restless and somewhat confused by Lyre's orders, but dared not speak out. He could only suppress his doubts and proceed with fear. By noon, sharp, mournful cries echoed from the sky. Lyre looked up, his heart pounding. In his sight, countless crows appeared. They were about half an arm long, all black, with long beaks. The sheer number created a dark tide, covering the sky. These were level 5 scavenger crows. The convoy immediately grew tense. The swamp dwellers' legs trembled, their faces filled with fear, wishing they could hide under the wheels. The wetland lizard men drew their steel knives, their eyes fierce, ready for a bloody fight. But just as everyone felt the pressure mounting, the dark tide of sky monsters, when approaching within a kilometer of the convoy, suddenly seemed to hit an invisible mountain and sharply changed direction, flying away to the other side. They narrowly avoided the convoy again. Boom! Among the scavenging crows, a bright flash of lightning suddenly erupted. In an instant, dozens of crows, covered in black smoke, fell from the sky. Then, a terrifying roll of thunder exploded. It seemed like the beginning of a grand show. Streaks of silver dragons danced wildly in the sky. Within the dark tide, Flashes of lightning and thunder constantly lit up the sky. The deafening thunder made people's hearts tremble. Liar focused intently. He saw a group of giant birds with wings spanning 7 or 8 meters, covered in lightning, crashing through the scavenging crows. They were ruthlessly hunting these level 5 creatures. The storm thunderbirds, level 13. There were over 100 of them. The strongest griffin army in Lorland City, with an average level of only 12. Is this really the wilderness? A reckless slaughter was happening in the sky. The storm thunderbirds controlled lightning, casually killing crows, filling the air with a smell of burnt feathers. If the flock hadn't avoided them, even if the target wasn't the crows, the shock waves from the thunderbirds could still impact the convoy. Flying creatures are very fast. After a few hunts, the frightened crows sped up. They gradually disappeared from sight. Early in the morning, Liar was a bit puzzled why he had ordered several times more giant dragon dung bang. Now his face showed a clear change. His gaze on Liar was full of admiration. It seemed like the Lord possessed some incredible power, capable of sensing danger before it arrived. In the wilderness, this was almost like a divine gift. This sudden encounter didn't make him uneasy. In fact, it greatly boosted his confidence about the future. To prevent surprises, after the crows left, Liar immediately ordered the army to speed up. They traveled more than 10 miles before returning to normal pace. Traveling through the dangerous wilderness, the biggest obstacles weren't just terrifying monsters and wild creatures, but also poor roads. Thanks to the powerful horses in this fantasy world, like small trucks, they could pull the carts forcefully. Otherwise, just rushing through the journey would be enough to break anyone. Long journeys are boring and dull. After 2 days of traveling, by the afternoon of the 19th, Liar suddenly ordered the lizard men to handle the dragon droppings and set up camp in a tall grass area. No one understood why they stopped so early today. When Liar told everyone to be silent and tied the horses' mouths, they finally realized something. Everyone tried to breathe quietly. By dusk, the ground suddenly trembled a little, as if a large group of cavalry was passing in another direction. The shaking was not strong, but they were only 2 or 3 kilometers away. If the dragon droppings had not been destroyed, it would surely attract attention. Although they didn't know who was coming, having a large cavalry force in the wilderness was definitely dangerous. Only Liar knew what they had avoided. The wilderness bandits are a major threat. They are ruthless and terrifying raiders who attack passing caravans. Where they pass, only blood and dead bodies remain. The barbarian tribes are the main source of these bandits. They are wild, violent, and love to raid. No wonder no one wants to explore the wilderness 500 kilometers away. A single attack by bandits can wipe out a newly arrived lord. Everyone came to develop new lands, not to die. After surviving this crisis, Liar relaxed a little. He sent the lizardmen to keep watch and let everyone rest peacefully. During the day, they traveled. At night, they slept. That was the routine of traveling. Nighttime made the wilderness much more dangerous, so they had to be very careful. But Liar did not sleep because early morning was the 20th, and new information would come again. Traveling through the wilderness is full of unknown dangers. For most lords exploring new lands, just traveling takes a lot of effort. Scouts need to go 20 or 30 miles ahead to watch for danger and can be attacked by monsters at any time. But for Bane, it became somewhat boring. Every day was just traveling, and more traveling. The dragon droppings kept most creatures away. Sometimes, the Great Lord would order the army to speed up, rest in place, or hide in the dense woods. Then, waves of danger quietly and silently passed by without incident. This made the swamp dweller increasingly sure that his lord must have a strong sense of danger awareness. Perhaps, he even has the power to see the future. The latter is just his wild imagination, but the former is something he confirmed during the past half-month of travel. Lil's status in his heart was rising rapidly. In just over half a month, he was filled with madness and passion. Following the strong is the natural instinct of all beings in Nowhere World. In the wilderness, this trait is amplified to the extreme. Not only him, but all swamp dwellers and marsh lizardmen are the same. On August 4th at noon, the team stopped to rest. Since leaving on July 12th, Lil had traveled across the wilderness for exactly 22 days. They traveled by day and rested at night. On the magic map, They were only about 30 kilometers away from their destination, the muddy swamp. Seeing the shining six-pointed star pattern so close, Leal's mood grew excited. Today at noon, he would reach his pioneering territory. Clearing land, building a city, gathering power. Everything would start from here. Speed up. Before sunset, we will reach the territory. Hearing this, everyone's morale soared. Their pace naturally quickened, as the sun gradually sank below the horizon. But the heat remained intense. A cool breeze suddenly blew from ahead, making everyone feel comfortable. Leal's spirits lifted. He looked up. At the end of his sight, a curved rainbow with 7 colors hung in the sky, and the sunset's glow was as fiery and colorful as flames, reflecting beautifully with the rainbow. He could also see the steam rising from the high temperature. Meanwhile, on the magic map, his marker and the six-pointed star pattern completely merged. Muddy swamp. We've arrived. Finally, we've arrived. I can feel the swamp calling me. Is this where we will live from now on? It seems bigger than the swamp we lived in before. Hail to the goddess of beauty. Everyone became excited. The mudman danced happily, and the wetland lizard men were also very eager. After traveling for more than 2 weeks across the wilderness, covering thousands of miles and facing many hardships, they finally reached their destination safely. His heart was full of joy, and all his emotions burst out. Liar was also very excited now. Finally, we are here. This is his territory, the very place where everything begins. At that moment, the swamp god spirit within the seed of magic in his mind suddenly shone with a faint glow. Liar instinctively looked toward the swamp hidden behind the grass, feeling that deep within the land, something he longed for was sleeping. Power. Like a traveler in the desert longing for water. Master. Bane interrupted his thoughts with a slightly excited tone. This mudman hero said excitedly, "There's plenty of moisture here. There must be a huge water vein in the swamp. For mudmen, the swamp is their true home. The swamp they lived in before dried up because the water vein vanished, forcing them to leave, which led to their capture. A giant water vein is the key to the swamp's survival. There is great potential ahead." Liar calmed his mind and spoke cheerfully, "Hopefully so. Everyone rest for the night, and tomorrow we will explore the swamp further." He needed to carefully think about where to establish his territory and how to develop it next. Most importantly, today is August 4th, early morning, which is another time for intelligence updates. Over the past few days, on the 20th, 25th, and 30th, they received 3 updates, all warnings about threats ahead. He relied on this information to avoid several monster attacks that could have destroyed his convoy. Finally, he arrived at this muddy swamp over 1,000 kilometers from Lorland City. It seemed smooth sailing, but only he knew how dangerous the past half-month had been. They set up camp and started a fire to cook. After dinner, Liar stepped out of the tent. The moon was just a crescent, shining with pure white light. The hot air gradually cooled, and a refreshing breeze blew in. Liar felt unusually relaxed and enjoyed the night breeze comfortably. I saw Haggis, who had just finished setting up the night watch. Seeing my hero, whom I personally raised, I waved my hand and asked him to sit on the grass nearby. Haggis hesitated with excitement and carefully sat down. "Master." Lil looked at his expression and spoke softly. "Haggis, I haven't asked before. Where is your home?" Haggis paused, a bit sad in his eyes. "Master, our swamp was taken over by a group of orcs long ago. I led my people to wander in the wilderness. During a conflict with a snake person, we were captured by passing humans. The word, home, felt unfamiliar to him. For most wild creatures, that is their destination. Stronger ones claim territory and even build cities. Weaker races can only wander in the wilderness." After speaking, Haggis hesitated again. "But after meeting you, I found my true purpose." His eyes lit up with hope. "To follow you is our greatest honor in life." Leal gave them a sense of purpose, letting them know who they fight for and why. These things may seem insignificant, but to him, they are very important. Hearing the heartfelt words of this lizard hero, Leal felt a bit moved. He inexplicably felt less distant from this world. He reached out and patted Haggis on the shoulder. "From now on, this will be our home." Haggis was stunned, wanting to say something but unsure what. In the end, he simply nodded and responded with an A strange warmth filled his heart, something he hadn't felt in a long time. It seemed that everything was understood without words. They stayed on the grass until dawn. When the date changed from August 4th to August 5th, the information system interface in Leal's mind updated again. Information system has cooled down, can refresh data. Do you want to refresh? His spirit lifted, and his eyes showed excitement and anticipation. Refresh. In the next moment, 5 new pieces of information appeared in sequence. 1. In the center of the swamp, there is a flat area with a diameter of 2 kilometers, which is the best place to build a territory. On the right side, there is a winding small path that leads directly to the center. Whenever you encounter any fork, always go left. 2 stars, 2. Activating the swamp authority will cause a strong magical energy fluctuation. When you fully control the authority, do not step out of the swamp. 2 stars, 3. After reaching the center of the muddy swamp, walk 10 kilometers southeast. There is a starry sky vine, which is stronger than steel ropes and lightweight, making it very suitable for building houses in the swamp. 2 stars, 4. About 30 kilometers north of the central area, there is a group of decayed centaurs. They have an average level of 8, with the highest level reaching 10. There are more than 500 of them. 3 stars, 5. Beneath the territory occupied by the decayed centaurs, a 1-star magic plant called Blue Heart Mudfruit grows. 3 stars. Liar immediately felt excited. This time, the information refreshed is all at least 2 stars, and there are even 2 pieces of 3-star information. This is the most valuable update he has had in many days. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and started reading from the first piece of information. The first is about where to build the territory. The swamp center has a 2-kilometer diameter open space, perfect for building a territory. It also provides a path to the swamp center. With this information, he can save a lot of trouble. Very good. The second piece is about activating the swamp authority. But where the authority is located and how it exists is still unknown. He can only note this down for now and operate after obtaining the authority. The third piece of information is very interesting, the starry sky vine. He has never heard of this plant before. Swamp terrain is special. Building houses and structures like on normal land is very risky. The humid water vapor and the easily sinking ground are major obstacles. Now he has a material for building the territory. This is great. He must get it. The fourth piece of information, worth 3 stars. It is about the group of decayed centaurs living 30 kilometers north of the central area. There are over 500 of them, with an average level of 8 and the highest level reaching 10. They are all mid-level knights. Liar immediately felt the pressure. At this moment, the most powerful being in my hands, the Haggis, is only at level 7. Although it is a hero unit, it is impossible for one person to face 500 decayed half-humans alone. That's unrealistic. Unless it's a top-tier expert like Felina at level 17. The value of a 3-star unit shows many important points. The last piece of information is very meaningful. Beneath the decayed half-humans, there is a hidden magical plant, the Blue Heart Mud Fruit. This magical plant has memory and is a rare food that can be eaten directly as a main meal. Compared to Noya rice, it's not as good, but just half a kilogram can fill a strong orc warrior's stomach for a whole day. It also produces a lot, maturing in just 2 months. However, this magical plant only grows in wet areas, making it hard to cultivate on a large scale. It has always been controlled by wealthy nobles. If I can get it, the food problem will be solved. This is a strategic treasure related to the survival and future growth of the territory. The growth conditions for the Blue Heart Mudfruit are not difficult in wetlands. It's a chosen plant. Its 3-star value is truly significant. But, to obtain this highly potential magical plant, I first need to deal with the threat of the decayed half-humans. Liar falls into deep thought and slowly falls asleep. August 5th, early morning. Liar gets up early, checks the amount of dragon droppings, then looks toward the swamp ahead. The mud, muddy water, rotting corpses, weeds, moss, and lone trees match the typical swamp image described by bards. Low bushes grow in the muddy water, and bubbles occasionally rise from a few murky ponds, with bones of unknown creatures partly visible on the surface. The air is filled with the smell of rotten mud, and moss covers the dried, decayed wood, giving it a thick green coat. Faint mist drifts in the air, making it hard to see clearly. Through the fog, A few sparse giant trees can be seen, but it's not a forest. The muddy swamp stretches for hundreds of kilometers, home to countless swamp creatures. It's also a dangerous and deadly place. The most impressive feature is the swallowing mudland, a natural trap. One wrong step, and you could be swallowed by the muddy water. Additionally, the damp environment nurtures countless highly poisonous insects and snakes. Ordinary people find it difficult to walk through here. On the muddy ground, a crooked little path extends into the fog. Liar takes a deep breath and orders Haggis to lead 5 squads of marsh lizardmen to scout ahead and watch for danger. He aims to eliminate all threats. Then, he commands the convoy to follow the path. The road is narrow, and the convoy inevitably becomes longer. Both swamp dwellers and marsh lizardmen are creatures of the marsh. After entering, their spirits and energy noticeably increase. The moist air, the murky water pools, and the dense growth of grass, trees, and vines create a strange environment that makes them feel safe. Liar feels the same. After entering the swamp, he can sense the entire marsh cheering and celebrating, welcoming his arrival. He gazes deeply at this wetland, his eyes shining like a galaxy. Your god has returned. They move along the winding swamp trail. Before long, the fog begins to lift gradually. As they go deeper into the swamp, tall trees start to appear. Though sparse, they stretch endlessly, blocking the view along with the tall grass, limiting sight to about 100 or 200 meters. The swampy water pools emit a faint rotten smell. Fish tails occasionally slap the water surface, creating ripples. The swamp is filled with many dangers, even more than swamp monsters, poisonous insects and snakes that are everywhere and fiercely toxic. Because of the dragon's droppings, they have already fled in panic, causing little impact on their progress. After about 20 minutes of walking, a long howl suddenly echoes ahead. It's Haggis's voice. Warning! Enemies approaching. Liar's pupils shrink sharply. He quickly orders the team to stop moving. He has 5 squads of marsh lizardmen guard the rear, while the rest advance. Turning 2 corners, their view opens up. On a low, open wetland, murky water flows over short grass. A few large trees stand alone in the middle of the wetland, their green leaves hazy. Haggis, a level 7 hero, leads 5 squads of marsh lizardmen, shouting fiercely as they fight off monsters pouring out from a small hill about 10 meters high covered in weeds behind them. Its height is about 1.20 meters, like a small child. It has a pointed mouth, with 2 sharp teeth showing, and 4 long whiskers almost curling to the back of its head. Its ears are large, and its eyes look wild. Its body is like a bigger version of a mouse, but it walks upright. Its claws are as sharp as daggers, reflecting cold light in the morning sun. Kelda Mouse Man, Level 3, Potential, 1 star, Race Talent, Death Plague, carries deadly germs that infect enemies after damage. Skill, Biting, 1 star, uses sharp teeth to bite enemies, causing piercing damage. Comment, Creatures from underground, beware of their sharp teeth. Level 3 Monster. Liar's eyes narrow slightly. Its level isn't high, but there are too many. Behind a small hill, it seems to be their nest. In this moment, the gathered number outside has already exceeded 4 squads, and more keep coming out. A dark, dense mass. Even though the wetland lizardmen are much stronger, the overwhelming number makes them like rocks hit by waves, ready to be overwhelmed at any moment. Liar immediately orders, charge in. Join up with Hargs. The wetland lizardmen soldiers don't hesitate. They grip their steel blades and roar as they rush into the dense crowd of Kelda Mouse men. They swing their blades, slicing through. No armor protects the mouse men, so they are cut apart directly. Blood sprays wildly, but the fierce mouse men show no sign of retreat. The smell of blood fuels their brutality. They split into 2 groups, rushing toward 2 squads. They leap forward, grabbing and biting wildly. Their sharp teeth are like daggers, stabbing through armor and tearing scales. The number of mouse men is so large that even a line of steel blades can't block them all. The first 10 or so wetland lizardmen are hit first. The frantic mouse men crawl over them, biting into gaps in their armor. Crack! You can hear the crisp sound of bones breaking. The furious lizardmen swing their steel blades, cutting off heads with a slash. But what's chilling is that even after decapitation, The fierce mouse heads still cling tightly to their bodies, not letting go. The force was increasing even more. The terrifying biting strength caused many warriors' arms to be bitten through. But after being injured, the wetland lizardmen also went into a frenzy, their amber eyes turning scarlet. They growled low and charged into the chaos. Ahead, a large group of ratmen was overturned by a vehicle and joined forces with hargs. At this moment, there were about 15 squads of wetland lizardmen on the battlefield. However, the number of Kurd ratmen increased from 4 squads to 7 squads. A sea of rats formed in the swamp. Moreover, from the overgrown hill behind, new ratmen kept emerging continuously. The enemy was only about 1.2 meters tall, with average strength and almost no defense. But what was terrifying was their sharp, gnawing teeth, which were highly lethal. Even a 1-star armor could be dented by their bites. The scales of the wetland lizardmen could be pierced directly. Although each bite cost a life, there were too many of them. They fought with their lives in exchange for injuries. These ratmen didn't seem to fear death at all. Seeing the fierce, fearless ratmen, Liar, in the center of the formation, finally felt the ferocity of the swamp. The Kurd ratmen were in a frenzy, and the divine residual power skill couldn't control such a state of life. He took a deep breath, his gaze turning dangerous. If he couldn't control them, then he would slaughter them all. Kill. His magic power surged. A pale blue light crossed space and entered the bodies of several severely wounded wetland lizardmen warriors in front. Their injuries healed visibly fast. Swamp Blessing, 1 star, can grow. Cast a life force energy covering a 3 by 3 meter area, speeding up healing, restoring up to 20% of health, and increasing the healing effect to 30% for swamp tribes. He didn't have harmful skills, but possessed powerful healing magic. This was definitely the most needed divine skill for the frontline warriors. After a few rounds of healing, the injured wetland lizardmen warriors became even more fierce. They fought fearlessly. In the most brutal way, they fought against the enemy, turning the battlefield into a meat grinder. Steel blades slashed, sharp claws slaughtered. Face-to-face combat, every strike piercing to the bone, flesh and blood flying, blood splattering. Such scenes sent chills down the spine. At this moment, in the midst of the battlefield atmosphere, no one felt fear anymore. Everything was blurred in the bloodshed, and the only thought was, kill. Kill the enemy scum. The low grasslands and the marshes with rolling water plants were now stained bright red. The rotten smell of mud and water mixed with the stench of blood, making people feel sick. Hags, as a hero unit, was unleashing an unimaginable fighting power. He radiated a faint crimson energy, burning like flames on his body. Vitality. With over 1,000 points of health, Hags's destructive power soared. He almost single-handedly blocked the charge of the Kurd rat people from one direction. One strike, one enemy. The hero's strength was now fully displayed. But the fierce and crazy Kurd rat people used overwhelming numbers to forcefully suppress this swamp lizard hero. It was truly an example of many ants killing an elephant. Estimate roughly, the rat soldiers in front of him already exceeded a large squad, over 1,000. The casualties and fallen enemies were countless. Liar did not personally kill any rat soldiers, but with his powerful healing magic overseeing the command, the entire battle's rhythm changed. The tactic of sacrificing many to wound many was suppressed to the limit. The wounds left on the Kurd rat soldiers by the swamp lizard warriors, only 4 or 5 of them, were quickly healed in the blink of an eye. The enemy's brutal sacrifices did not achieve the expected results. 15 squads, 150 people. With high efficiency, they killed over 3,000 Kurd rat soldiers. Finally, after another attack was shattered by steel blades, a sharp squeak of a rat echoed from the hill behind. 5 or 6 squads of Kurd rat soldiers retreated like a tide, disappearing into the hill behind, leaving behind a field of corpses and severed limbs. The intense bloodiness even made the swamp soil lose its original color. Liar stood on the battlefield, calmly watching this horrifying scene, slowly exhaling. The bloodied remains no longer made his heart tremble. Iron and blood and slaughter were forging a lord fit for survival in the wilderness. Before he could make a move, the intelligence system in his mind suddenly flickered. You commanded your army to kill 3,692 Kelda rats and achieved a glorious victory, earning an additional piece of intelligence. The swamp god possesses the ability to refine the essence of life energy. As long as you are in the swamp, you can use the divine power to extract the essence of the lives you execute. Note, this essence can promote the evolution of swamp creatures, helping them break their potential limits and transform. You can now increase your subordinate's potential limit to 2 stars, but only if you control the swamp's authority. Leal's breath trembled, and his eyes suddenly burned with excitement. Unexpectedly, there was still a surprise. Another valuable piece of intelligence. In the swamp, you can use divine power to extract the essence of life, which can break potential limits. Although the current potential limit is only 2 stars, it still excites Leal greatly. What is most needed now? Enough military strength. And the only controllable force in your hand is the wetland lizardmen. But these 1-star potential warriors have already reached level 6, the maximum level. Turning to look at the warrior beside him, soaked in blood and wearing black armor, filled with a savage and brutal aura. His eyes lit up. Gather all the bodies of these rats. The order was given, and the wetland lizardmen, who had just finished fighting, immediately moved into action. At this moment, Hargs came from a distant bush, carrying a nearly unconscious Kelda rat. Master, this is a hybrid we just found. His amber eyes showed a hint of relentless killing intent. There's no need to be friendly to enemies. Leal's gaze fixed on the panting, blood-covered Kelda rat, his expression cold. Where are you from? The rat grinned, blood constantly flowing from the corner of his mouth, his voice sounding like a creaking windmill. Great Queen, we'll feed you all to the rat pups. This area is the territory of the Kaka clan. Surface dwellers, you're seeking death. Kaka clan, your territory? Harg's eyes darkened sharply, and he clenched his hand tighter around the rat's neck. A group of lowly pests dares to spy on my lord's. Harg's eyes darkened sharply, and he clenched his hand tighter around the rat. Surface dwellers, you have no idea what kind of beings you've provoked. Kurd, the rat creature, spoke sharply, still acting wildly. Dark mountain range. Surface dwellers? These 2 words made Lear's eyes narrow. The Dark Mountain Range is a famous mountain range in the underground world. There is actually a passage from the swamp leading to the underground world. Lear's mind turned quickly, and he spoke softly. Swearing is just the cry of the weak. Kurd rat creatures, do you really think you can threaten the surface? We are just scouts exploring ahead. Wait and see. Once Her Majesty the Queen kills that old red dragon, this place will become the Kakalo clan's paradise. You can't escape. As he finished speaking, his breathing grew rapid. Then his body stiffened, his eyes lost focus, and his life force suddenly disappeared. He was dead. Hags looked grim and suddenly twisted his body. He tore off the enemy's head and threw it forcefully into the muddy water far away, splashing water everywhere. He was actually threatened by this damned sewer rat creature. Lear remained calm, not angered, and looked around quietly. Find some survivors and ask them questions. Hags immediately acted. He found 4 more badly injured Kurd rat creatures. After some interrogation, their stories matched. What they said was true. These Kurd rat creatures really came from the underground world. But unlike what the first rat had said, the Kakalo clan has not yet reached out to the surface. They are just scouts who accidentally found the passage to the surface. They haven't sent the message back yet, and it took them 7 days to reach the underground route. It will take some time to send the message to the surface. The Kakalo clan is indeed powerful. They are preparing to hunt a nearly ancient red dragon, but that will require the whole clan's effort. Even if they kill the red dragon, it will take time to recover. They won't focus on the surface in the short term. After confirming this information, Lear felt relieved. He had just arrived at the mud swamp and didn't want to face these fierce enemies so soon. No matter how great the potential, it takes time to realize. Right now, he lacks time the most. During his interrogation, the wetland lizard man gathered the bodies pulled from the crimson muddy water into a small hill. Over 3,000 fierce bodies piled together created a striking visual impact. Impressive. In the past half-month, Lear has experienced more than 10 conflicts and battles, and he has gradually grown stronger. Although such bloody scenes are chilling, they no longer shake his heart. Getting used to it is necessary. In this world, the weak have no right to survive. He took a deep breath and tried to channel his mental energy into the shattered, ghostly blue divine shard in his mind. His gaze fixed on the tall pile of corpses, and his right hand slowly extended. His magic surged like flames burning on his body, suddenly intensifying. It flowed out directly, eroding the pile of bodies in front of him. Next, the pale blue flames began to burn on the corpses. Red-tinted life essence was extracted and floated in the air, gathering into a river. Lear moved his mind. The crimson energy slowly spread out like a river, flowing into the bodies of the wetland lizard men around him. The wetland lizard men felt their bodies undergo strange changes. Their muscles became thicker, their bones stronger, and their tendons grew tougher. They were getting stronger. Their amber eyes looked at Lear with renewed heat and madness. "Master, grant us strength." The pile of corpses gradually shriveled, finally cracking like mummies weathered for thousands of years, breaking apart with a snap. They turned into a mess of debris, submerged in crimson muddy water. Once the energy from the bodies was drained, the rapid growth aura of the wetland lizard men calmed down. Lear looked at a nearby wetland lizard man with some curiosity. On its attribute panel, an extra status bar appeared behind the potential column. Potential, 1 star, evolution progress, 50%. If the evolution progress reaches full, will the potential break through to 2 stars? Will the level cap increase? The life essence of over 3,000 cutered mice has made these 15 squads of wetland lizard men halfway evolved. In other words, with just over 3,000 more, they can transform. Very good indeed. Lear felt very pleased. Gods are truly the ultimate beings in this world. Even with just a little power, they are already extraordinary. If someone could fully control a divine rank, the power would be unimaginable. Unfortunately, the current potential limit for improvement is only 2 stars. Hagras, this 2-star hero, remains unchanged. After calming his mind, Lyre had the wetland lizard search around, especially the escape route used by the rat people. As the interrogation revealed, the path leading to the underground world is winding and rugged, and the wetland lizard cannot enter. He could only mark this location on the magic map and explore it later. In the underground world, the dark mountains, the Keld rat people, the ancient red dragon, and the rat queen. All these things feel mysterious, making him eager to explore further. Given some time to develop, who knows who the real prey might be? He organized his team and set out again. The winding trail passed through wetlands, mudflats, trees, and bushes. After traveling 2 or 3 kilometers, they reached 4 forks, each leading in different directions. Lyre waved his hand, indicating they should go to the far left. Over the past half-month, he had established absolute authority among the group. Even if it was unreasonable, no one would question him. Many swamp people even began to see Lyre as a divine figure who could hear the will of the gods. The dragon droppings cleared away most dangers, and their speed increased. By noon, they had traveled 20 kilometers. But suddenly, Lyre waved sharply, stopping everyone. His tone was serious. "Destroy the dragon droppings immediately. Everyone get down." Bane at the back didn't hesitate and quickly poured a large amount of clean water into a clay basin. The dragon droppings soaked in blood lost their energy, dimming like a powerless light bulb. The dragon's presence was gone. A moment later, while the crowd was confused, a deep roar echoed in the air. Looking up, a terrifying creature with a wingspan over 20 meters, resembling an ancient giant beast, was soaring through the sky. It cast a huge shadow. It was a massive flying dragon with sturdy legs. The fierce dragon head is more terrifying than the carved dragons in the city walls or the murals. Its gray scales look like the bark of an ancient tree, rugged and tough, giving a strong sense of resilience. Even more frightening is the aura it emits, a powerful pressure from a high-level creature's bloodline, like a mountain pressing down from above. Flying dragon with 2 legs level, 16 potential, 4 stars? The limit for 4-star potential is level 15, but this flying dragon is level 16? It has broken the limit. Lyre's eyes become very sharp. Just a glance from afar makes him feel the soul-penetrating pressure. Everyone in the convoy dares not breathe loudly. The swamp people tremble, some even wet their pants. In the blink of an eye, the terrifying flying dragon disappears without a trace. But no one has recovered from the shock. They are still immersed in that terrifying pressure. Liar takes a deep breath. After entering the swamp, his perception, enhanced by the divine essence, is amplified tenfold. Feeling uneasy inside, he decisively orders to remove the dragon droppings. If this flying dragon finds out, it could bring great danger in an instant. His vigilance suddenly reaches its peak. In this dangerous wilderness, no one knows when the next threat might appear. He must use his intelligence system, divine essence, and all available power to make himself stronger as quickly as possible. Flying dragon, I will make you kneel before me sooner or later. After this terrifying experience, his heart becomes even more determined. Re-wet the dragon droppings. Let's go. With these two encounters, everyone's caution reaches its highest point. Liar continues to send more people, now 5 teams of marsh lizardmen exploring ahead. Marsh lizardmen are native to the swamp. Exploring and scouting are instinctive for them. After encountering the flying dragon, the path ahead suddenly becomes smooth. They haven't faced any obstacles along the way. This unusual scene makes Liar frown. Bane seems to sense his mood and quietly says, "Adult, this 2-legged flying dragon has very pure bloodline. Its level is probably above 15. Its aura is not weaker than that of a mature dragon. It can cause great fear and awe wherever it goes. The creatures in this swamp are likely hiding now or have temporarily fled, but within half a day, they will come back one after another. We need to hurry." Leal nodded and curiously looked at the swamp hero with greenish eyes. "Are you very familiar with 2-legged flying dragons?" Bane's eyes showed some memories. He nodded, then shook his head. "We once had a young 2-legged flying dragon. We wanted to raise it, but it needed too many resources, so we had to give up." His eyes looked bitter. Who can understand the frustration and helplessness of having a treasure but lacking the strength to control it? Can such a treasure really be obtained? Luck was on our side, but our strength was lacking. Leal patted his shoulder. "They will come again in the future." He didn't say more, urging the team to speed up. They wanted to reach the destination before the flying dragon's power faded. The order was given, and everyone pushed themselves to move faster, the pace suddenly quickening. They went through many twists and turns, forks, muddy paths, haystacks, dense forests. All kinds of complex terrain appeared. But everyone was amazed to find that Leal always chose the right path. He didn't get lost or need to turn back. It was as if he had a kind of foresight. Bane watched from behind, his eyes growing more eager. "Master, you must be a chosen one blessed by the gods." They kept moving without stopping. The sun gradually set in the west, and after crossing a muddy grassy path, their view suddenly opened up. Ahead was a flat, low grassland, very wide, with the horizon visible only from a distance. In the center, a few sparse trees grew. The grass was about a meter above the water, with marshy mud flowing slowly around. The lush, lively scene gave a peaceful feeling. They had arrived. At this moment, everyone became excited. After more than 20 days and over 1,000 kilometers of travel, traveling by night and day, we finally arrived at our territory, our future home. While everyone was excited, Haggis calmly approached Liar and stood beside him. He cautiously pointed to the sparse group of tall trees in the middle of the area, more than 10 trees over 15 meters high with dense canopies. "Master, those are not just trees. They are swamp tree people." Liar's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked up. The gray tree trunks were rugged and uneven, covered in large patches of moss. The branches were thick, with green leaves swaying in the wind, occasionally shedding some yellowed leaves. At first glance, they seemed ordinary, but when sensing them more deeply, it was clear these trees had a lively, burning vitality like a blazing fire. Swamp tree people level 9, potential 3 stars, max level 12, race talent, child of the earth, rooted in the ground, increases defense by 50%, constantly absorbing earth energy to recover. Skills: root bindings, 2 stars, uses roots to trap enemies, with a paralyzing effect. Branch whip, 2 stars, swings branches to strike enemies, dealing an extra 40% damage. Evaluation: swamp tree people are powerful fighters, but they cannot move until they reach level 10. A 3-star potential, level 9 swamp tree people. "Master, please give the order." Haggis's gaze was firm. As soon as Liar gave the command, he would lead the charge, whether facing tree people or dragons. Liar slowly shook his head. Although their level was only 3 higher than the wetland lizard men, their combat strength was more than twice as strong. If we want to fight them directly, the cost will be very high. There's no need for that. Come with me. He spoke and slowly stepped forward. When he reached about 50 meters away, Liar stopped. His eyes fixed on the towering trees over 15 meters tall. There were 12 in total. Swamp tree people have a deadly flaw. They cannot move. Though they lose mobility, they gain incredible strength for close combat. Without long-range options, removing these 12 swamp tree people will definitely come at a great cost. Fighting the treant. A branch thicker than the steering wheel swept down, almost crushing the wetland lizard man instantly. Noticing the arrival of outsiders, the large tree in front shook its branches loudly. Leaves fell, revealing ugly faces on the thick, moss-covered gray trunk. They opened their mouths and emitted deep, thunder-like sounds. Strangers, this is not your place. Leave immediately, the ancient treant spoke. It used an advanced language, so even without understanding the words, one could grasp its meaning through mental communication. It directly transmitted its message to the mind. Liar stared at the treant in front. Before he could speak, Hargs became angry. Outsiders, treants, this is the domain of the ruler. You should kneel and pay respect. The slow-tempered treant immediately got angry at these words. Its face on the trunk twisted slightly, about to curse. Suddenly, an indescribable, overwhelming pressure surged from the human boy in front. A look of fear appeared on its face. This was the divine power's residual might, an incredible skill that could make subordinates submit forever, never betray. But only if the opponent was in a weak state and unable to escape, forced to endure the divine authority. If the opponent was free and in good condition, it would likely provoke anger. Even divine beings have many who oppose them. Relying solely on pressure to sweep through the swamp was unrealistic. The truly powerful strength still came from oneself. But the situation was different now. The swamp treants could not move. They had to endure the divine authority of the swamp god. Even if it was just a shattered divine fragment, or the authority not yet activated. Divine power remained divine, far beyond what ordinary humans could resist. The opponent could move and escape this area, avoiding the divine might, but the swamp treants had to bear it all. 12 swamp treants immediately felt their souls tremble, eager to kneel and bow before the person in front. It seemed as if he controlled their very souls, an omnipotent and majestic presence. No, you demon, don't think you can enslave our souls. The swamp treants went mad. Sizzle, the ground suddenly shattered, with countless root-like tendrils, as sharp as steel whips, tearing through the earth, wildly dancing like fierce dragons. Bang bang, the tendrils struck the ground, kicking up clouds of dirt and grass debris. This terrifying scene did not change Liar's expression. He remained calm, watching the tree man. To control the opponent through domination, one must completely subdue them. At this moment, the opportunity was special. Within a 30-meter radius was the area covered by the swamp tree roots. Liar stood 50 meters away, safe from harm. He continuously poured mental energy into the dark blue divine essence, unleashing a stronger divine might. That overwhelming pressure was even more powerful than the dragon's roar of a flying dragon. It surged freely, pressing down on the swamp tree man's soul. His inner frustration and anger eased slightly under this pressure, and his soul gradually adapted to the feeling of submission and surrender. This made the swamp tree man panic. He started to beg loudly. But Liar paid no attention, maintaining his divine might. Submit or be destroyed. His soul felt as if grasped by a giant hand, creaking loudly. But the tree man refused to surrender. No, demon, you will never enslave us. Never. Despite his firm resistance, the stalemate lasted for half an hour. The fiery life force of these stubborn tree men began to fade. Liar's face turned pale. Maintaining the divine might for so long was a huge drain on him. But this was the test of endurance. Whoever couldn't hold on would be out. Now, the initiative was in his hands. The timing, the environment, and the people all favored him. What could they possibly do to fight me? The tree man at the front felt his soul cracking, with large fissures appearing. His desire to submit had reached its peak, and his last rebellious thoughts were finally extinguished in weakness. His branches slowly drooped, and his face on the trunk showed a hint of fear. Great ruler, master of the swamp, I willingly submit to you. As one tree man surrendered, the remaining 11, already unable to hold on, also lowered their heads. They obeyed in spirit and blood. Liar sensed their souls sending respectful obedience. His mental energy surged out, easily imprinting his mark within their souls. After easing the pressure, the pale face regained some color and vitality. A slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The eagle has been tamed. These 12 tree people immediately became the first guards of the territory. The original disadvantage turned into an advantage instantly. Hags, who was nearby and witnessed everything, trembled with emotion. Such a powerful swamp tree person bowed to the authority of the ruler. There was no need for battle. This is his ruler, a strong and fierce ruler. Bane was also very excited. The mighty divine power not only made the swamp tree people afraid, but also caused all the swamp dwellers to tremble. Liar ignored the thoughts of the crowd and looked at the cart. Transport all the goods here. Build the territory around this place. Bane, go explore the surroundings, confirm the terrain, and plan the future buildings of the territory. At this moment, this swamp hero showed his usefulness. Bane nodded excitedly, but then hesitated as if he remembered something. Master, what should we name our territory? Liar said meaningfully. City of the First Dew. City of the First Dew? Bane was first stunned, then his eyes became very excited. City of the First Dew. But soon, the first war of the gods broke out, and the god of the swamp fell. The construction of the City of the First Dew was postponed indefinitely. The next swamp god never rebuilt the sacred swamp city. Since then, the name City of the First Dew could only be heard in legends. This name is very meaningful. They want to restore the glorious past of the swamp tribe, reforge the broken sword. Where your gaze falls, we swear to follow to the death. Liar nodded slightly, but said nothing more. Let them go and busy themselves, while he returned to the front of the swamp tree people. The roots of these large trees had already been buried back into the ground, leaving only a mess on the grass. It would take time to restore and nurture them again. Is there any enemy nearby that could threaten us? The swamp tree person at the front asked in a muffled voice. Ruler, to the north, there is a wandering horde of stinky giants, number unknown. To the east, dozens of two-headed ogres are entrenched. A foul-smelling giant beast, a two-headed ogre? Liar raised an eyebrow. How strong are they? The foul-smelling giant is around level 9 and often comes here to hunt. The two-headed ogre arrived 3 months ago with an average level of 10. His gaze sharpened. Surviving in the swamp means there are no weak creatures. These are two serious threats that must be investigated carefully. After asking for a while, the swamp treant couldn't provide more information. Though the level 9 treants are strong, their inability to move makes this weakness dangerous. They can only wait passively for others to approach. The foul-smelling giant and the two-headed ogre have large hunting areas, so their locations are roughly known. As for the others, he can only explore them himself. With a level 9 swamp treant guarding the territory, plus 200 level 6 wetland lizardmen soldiers wearing heavy armor, there's no need to be overly worried. The strong horses brought supplies to the center. They began unloading. Tents were set up one by one, and all supplies were moved inside. Watching the busy crowd, Liar felt strangely moved. He was about to start from nothing here and build his own territory. That feeling was quite strange. It was like playing a real-life farming game, but this feeling couldn't be matched by any game. He took a deep breath, reopened the information system, and looked at the 3 incomplete pieces of information. 3. After reaching the center of the muddy swamp, walk 10 kilometers southeast to find a starry vine. These vines are tougher than steel ropes, lightweight, and perfect for building houses in the swamp. 2 stars. 4. About 30 kilometers north of the center, a group of decayed centaurs live. Their average level is 8, with the highest at level 10, numbering over 500. 3 stars. 5. Beneath the territory of the decayed centaurs, a level 1 magic plant called Blue Heart Mudfruit grows. 3 stars. Besides the foul-smelling giant and the two-headed ogre mentioned by the swamp treant, The decayed centaurs 30 kilometers north also need caution. This is a high-level monster stronghold, and only when the wetland lizardman's potential and levels increase can he attempt to explore and attack it. During his thinking, his gaze shifted to the third piece of information, southeast, 10 kilometers away, the starry vine. While pondering, Liar called Bane again. "Do you know about the starry vine?" This swamp hero thought for a moment and whispered, "Sir, the legend says that the starry vine is as strong as steel and grows well in marshes. The most powerful marsh city, Swamp City, was built using starry vines." He hesitated a bit. But after Swamp City was destroyed, the vine became rare, and even the stories are fewer now. Liar smiled. "If we can find the starry vine, could you use it?" Bane's eyes lit up when he heard this. "If the master says so, it must be true." He pounded his chest to promise. "Of course I can. That's the starry vine, the foundation of the legendary Swamp City, Swamp City." Liar nodded and looked at Hargs nearby. "Leave 5 small teams and swamp treants to guard the supplies. Everyone else, follow me." "Yes, Lord." Hargs immediately went to gather people. 15 small teams assembled, and Liar didn't stay long, turning to head southeast. With swamp treants guarding the territory, he was greatly freed from worry. Without the convoy slowing him down, his march was very fast. Liar walked through the damp swamp, feeling a strong sense of familiarity and comfort. His perception was also greatly expanded. He could sense danger or safety even in places he couldn't see. The range reached 300 meters. For powerful creatures like dragons, this range could be increased several times. The swamp was his home ground. After walking about 2 kilometers, Liar suddenly signaled his troops to stop. His gaze fixed on a patch of reeds about 100 meters ahead, half as tall as a person, swaying in the breeze. "All troops, stay alert. There may be enemies hiding in the reeds." Amber-colored eyes of the wetland lizardmen immediately showed hostility. They gathered around him. As they sensed their movement, curses echoed from the reeds, rustling and shifting. A group of ugly creatures, about 1.5 meters tall, emerged from the reeds, glaring fiercely. The head has an ugly fish face, with dead white eyes that look very creepy. The body is covered in slimy, sticky mucus that smells strongly of fish, making people feel sick. It stands on 2 feet, holding a bone spear in its hand. Half-fish creature, level 5, potential 1 star, race talent, slimy mucus. The mucus on its body gives extra resistance to magic, reducing magic damage by 20%. Skills, slimy fish spear, 1 star. Mucus sticks to the weapon, causing it to stick and slow enemies when attacking. Wetland life, 1 star. Moves faster in wetlands, gaining an extra 30% movement speed. Evaluation, a common creature in the swamp. In a moment, the number of half-fish creatures exceeded 4 squads. Liar's eyes looked unfriendly. 1 star potential, level 5 monsters. What kind of stray animals are daring to ambush here? Kill, a cold snort. Hags led the charge, rushing forward. With overwhelming violence, he tore apart 7 or 8 half-fish creatures in front of him, plunging into the crowd. Blood dyed his body red, making this swamp lizard hero even more ferocious. Brutal, when hurt or attacking, he becomes extremely fierce, with all attributes increased by 30%. Fearless of pain, fighting to the death. Bloodthirsty, after tasting blood, his size increases by 20% and his strength by 40%. All his skills are born for killing. Normal swamp lizardmen are not as fierce in combat, but they are also killing half-fish creatures. One swamp lizard swings a steel knife, fighting a half-fish creature that is very agile and ducks under the attack. The lizard's spear strikes its belly hard. But crack, the bone spear breaks instantly. It only leaves a white mark on its armor. The swamp lizard snarls and swings its arm fiercely. Claws like blades, piercing through the chest with a squelch. The half-fish creature's back shows a bloody claw. It swings forcefully, tearing the body apart and throwing it aside like trash. The killing efficiency is not much slower than that of a level 3 Keldeer rat. Normal swamp lizardmen are stronger individually than these half-fish creatures. With their gears crushing power, they immediately show a fierce side. Although half-mermaids are also fierce, their weapons are not strong enough to pierce the armor of the wetland lizardmen. Pop. One by one, The half-mermaids are killed, and the number of squads drops rapidly. Soon, fewer than 3 small teams remain on the field. These swamp monsters finally collapse. The fear in their eyes can no longer be hidden. They tremble as they drop their weapons and turn to run away. But to prevent them from escaping, Liar had already sent several small teams to block the bushes. The fierce wetland lizard men begin their final cleanup. Steel blades swing together. Splat! Splat! The sound of blades piercing flesh and bones tearing apart echoes through the sky. Blood stains the grass. All 5 level 4 half-mermaids from the 4 squads are slaughtered. The cost was over 30 injured, but all only lightly hurt. About 30 in total, and none seriously. Liar originally wanted to capture some survivors, but in the end, not a single breath remained. Clearly, they had fought too fiercely. He didn't mind. Looking at the bodies scattered everywhere, his expression was calm, even with a hint of satisfaction. Gather everything together. These bodies are valuable spoils of war. The wetland lizard men, having experienced similar battles before, become excited immediately. They quickly carry the bodies over and pile them into a heap, then stand expectantly to the side. Liar smiles and doesn't waste words. Magic energy flows from him, and a pale blue light surrounds him. Red life energy floats up from the broken bodies of the half-mermaids and flows into the wetland lizard men nearby. As these bodies turn to residue, the progress bar on his panel jumps from 50% to 70%. He is one step closer to breaking his limit and evolving into a 2-star potential. This makes Liar very happy. Compared to level 3 rat men, level 5 half-mermaids provide more life energy. It's clear that higher levels mean richer life essence. Future battles and hunts will become even more enjoyable. Hargs and his team searched around, but found no signs of the half-mermaid habitat. Seeing this, Liar didn't waste any more time and continued forward. Passing through this reed area, there is a waterweed zone ahead. The green waterweeds stretch out long tendrils, with small pure white flowers growing at the top, floating on the water surface and swaying with the marsh water flow. A gentle breeze blows, causing the white flowers to sway and emit a fresh scent. Liar feels a bit more relaxed upon seeing this scene. At this moment, the marsh lizard man ahead lets out a surprised cry.